Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Douglas Planning Board meeting for Thursday, March 10th, 2022. A few housekeeping items before we begin. Name and address if you'd like to be heard on the agenda item. I'm going to open it to the board's questions first, but I will get to everyone. If you are online right now, please remain muted until your agenda item is up, and just raise your hand if you would like to speak on the item. And then we can hopefully do this quickly enough, but I will get to everyone. So first item on the agenda would be the A&R 66 Walnut Street. We have a presenter.
Good evening. My name is Norman Hill. I'm with Land Planning. I'm a licensed land surveyor. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. We have a 4-lot A&R plan tonight.
Okay, do you wanna, we have the plan in our packet?
Yes.
Everybody has the comment sheet?
Madam Chair, may I comment?
Yes.
Thank you. First off, good evening, everybody. My name is Matthew Benoit. I'm the Director of Community Development here, Town of Douglas. I'll be the lone staff member that's here this evening.
Sorry, if we could just, excuse me, Mr. Ryan, if we could just keep the audience conversations
Yeah.
silent for now. And Matt, do you want to move your plaque to the front?
Yeah,
And-
here so they can see it.
Oh, okay, all right.
Thank you. So this A&R I have already reviewed. This meets all of the criteria in our subdivision control regulations. The only thing I needed was the full set and the Mylar here this evening, which has been delivered. This is a division of land that creates 4 conforming lots along Walnut Street. All of them meet the frontage requirements, the lot size requirements, and the road, in my opinion, is a paved and passable way. Those are our 3 criteria for reviewing these, and I've been told them.
Board, any questions, concerns?
Got one,
Okay.
through the chair.
Yep.
We only have 5 signature lines, why not 7?
Good point.
That's the only thing I saw too.
I can answer that.
Yeah.
The registry only needs what would be considered a simple majority. So all members don't have to sign. We could sign up to 4 or more.
We've also had it in the past, we've mandated, there will be 7 lines on any A&R plan that comes in front of the board.
I'm happy.
We've had that for years.
I think we can make that a friendly request moving
I mean-
forward.
Yeah, it's fine for tonight, but I'm just saying, this isn't the first one that's come up, we only had 5.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'll entertain a motion to endorse.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Marks, second by Mr. Stevens. All those in favor?
Aye.
You're all set? Anyone that is online,
That's our view.
good? Okay. Please remain muted online until your agenda item and you are addressed by the chair. If you want, you can raise your hand and I will eventually get to you. Would you like to take care of anything else before we begin?
Oh.
I see this Blackstone Logistics concrete pouring working hours. Is anyone here for that?
If I may,
Yes.
through the chair,
Yep.
Mr. Eric is here for our economic development committee. I believe the gentleman that wished to speak about the concrete pours, you were going to contact, and he was going to join us remotely.
He can join you remotely. I'll call him right now to sign on.
So it's up to you, Madam Chair.
Will it be quick?
Very quick.
Yeah.
A few
Thing
minutes.
it.
But I can introduce this in the meantime if you'd like.
What? Oh, yeah.
So this is the Blackstone Logistics Center. This is the Tri-Town warehouse currently under construction, Uxbridge, Sutton, and Douglas. This request is common for large projects. Some towns, including the town of Uxbridge, has already the process they're doing for this is just to notify the police department, so if there's any enforcement issues, the police could respond. An issue, circumstance in Douglas would also be the same way, but we have a condition on our approval that says it needs to come to the planning board for our vote in order to change the hours. So that's why I asked that this email be provided that shows the schedule, a general idea of the vehicles they'll be using. It's not perfect dates, but we do have a commitment in the letter. They'll be extremely transparent on exact dates as it comes closer. The request is to extend the hours to 12 a.m. to 10 p.m. during the concrete floor pours. That's a process that could take approximately 4 to 6 weeks. And after that, it's the concrete tilt panels or the walls, possibly take 4 to 5 weeks.
There was a provision in the decision
Yes.
as a request from the
Yes.
board? Okay. Does the board have any specific questions? We've already kind of provided for that. Yeah.
To the chair, we already said that this was going to happen at those meetings. And we already, as a board, approved 24/7 on the idea of tours during the meetings. So I think it's just formality. We already gave the blessing on it. We knew it was all going to happen.
Do you want a formal vote?
Sure. We may have
Let's-
orally here at the meeting, but on the decision, it has specific hours that aren't 24/7.
Yeah.
So that's why we're back here. The motion we'd be looking for, unless
We'll wait for Bob.
the gentleman is joining, but I'm sure he
I
would
don't
mind
think
if
we
it's...
need- Yeah, I don't think we need to wait.
We're looking for a motion to amend the construction hours for the concrete pour schedule. My recommendations would be to require notification to us for the start and end dates of this, and defer the enforcement to the chief of police.
Do I hear a motion?
Yes.
So, Mr. Marks?
I'll second that.
Second, Mr. Schultzberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed to that? That wasn't many ayes.
No opposed.
Okay. Only heard like 3 voices.
Okay, moving on. Public hearing, 7 PM, public hearing, CRG Services Management LLC, application for site plan review. 105 and 123 Gilboa Street and 470 Northeast Main Street. Possible votes. Town of Douglas Planning Board legal notice of public hearing. Name of applicant, CRG Services Management LLC. Name of owner, Town of Douglas, care of tax acquisitions, Cousins Outdoors. Date and time of public hearing, Thursday, March 10th, 2022 at 7 PM. Subject matter of the hearing, the applicant is requesting approval from the Douglas Planning Board pursuant to the Town of Douglas zoning bylaws, section 9.4, site plan review. Project description, the project consists of a distribution warehouse with a footprint and gross floor area of 102,500 square feet, and additional improvements for subsurface utilities, stormwater management, vehicle parking, truck loading, and trailer spaces. Project site 105 and 123 Gilboa Street and 470 Northeast Main Street, Douglas, Mass. Assessors maps 138, 139, and 140, parcels 44, 1, and 9. Place of public hearing, Douglas Municipal Center, Resource Room, 29 Depot Street. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. Visit douglas-ma.gov website for agenda and Zoom information. A copy of the application is available for review during regular business hours in the Douglas Community Development Department, 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass. Posted February 22nd, 2022, and March 1st, 2022. Welcome.
Thank you.
May we have a motion to open or a call to open?
Can I entertain a motion to open the hearing, the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg, seconded by Mr. Stevens. All those in favor?
Aye.
I thought once you read it, it was...
Chair,
Yes.
I have one comment to the audience. This is the first time we're seeing this, to let you know.
Yep. We're opening the hearing for tonight.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Frank Fitzgibbons. I represent CRG, the applicant. And in that capacity, I'm the regional partner and basically guide in charge of oversight of this particular project, which means I've been involved since inception, and I will be involved since the till the end of this project. To my left here is Fred Ferraro. He is our Vice President of Construction Development. He'll be even more hands-on than I. And the brains of the operation is to my right. It's Todd Maury. He's with Beals and Associates. They will be our project engineers. They've been involved from the beginning, and they'll be in charge of basically taking us through the entire design process, full entitlement, and actual implementation of the building application construction if it so happens. So before I start, let me first of all thank the town for all the communication and all the work that you've done with us thus far. The professionalism of both staff and township officials is more than we've ever asked for. Special shout out to Bob and Eric. He's still around here. As you probably know, he doesn't sleep at night, so he and I have been in close communication with a lot of the things into the wee hours. We are very thankful for his coordination, and we look forward to that continuing into the future. A little bit about CRG before we start. We're basically a national real estate development company. We specialize in 4 product types, those being commercial, multifamily, institutional, and distribution, which is the topic of the conversation today. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of the history of the company. What we basically exist is a 3-pillar type of company. We exist as CRG, which is the development arm. That's where I work. We exist as LJC. That's a design company that we own. We have about 250 designers on staff, inclusive of architects, structural engineers, electrical engineers, things of that nature. And we also own our own construction company, which is Playhill. And what I think is really great about this situation here is that we control the entire process. So we design our own buildings, we build our own buildings, and we also finance our own buildings. So there's no finger pointing and there's no miscommunication when it comes to the implementation of projects. If you wouldn't mind. One more. Company metrics, we've been in business for 27 years. 2019 we did $750 million in development. That's a little bit antiquated, obviously. 2021 numbers aren't in yet, but we're close to the $3 billion for 2021. A couple of pictures about what we do. Again, upper left-hand corner is the industrial area. Within that category, our distributions are what you'd expect. They're basically storage for consumer non-durables and distribution out to basically stores and other wholesale establishments. So before I flip it over to Todd, I want to remind you of one particular topic that I threw toward the board, not necessarily this board, but the township officials when I first met with them last summer. And the notion I projected at that time was that keep in mind that when we go through this process, we're not just merely asking for a building permit or an approval to build a building. Obviously, we want to do it compliant with all codes, all regulations, but we're more so asking to be a member of your business community. And when I say that, that means a lot to me, because what I mean is we don't necessarily just want to build a minimum, we want to do what's right. A good project, something that we're proud of, something that you're proud of, something that offers benefits to the community. So we're open to any discussions that sort of go beyond the minimum obligations that we have with respect to codes and compliance and things of that nature. So keep that in mind. We want to be members of the business community, and with that particular notion, we're open to it. All right?
Thank you.
Excellent.
Again, my name is Todd Maury with Beals Associates. Up on that cover screen, I also mentioned Larry Beals. You're going to get one of the two, if not both of us, during this whole process, as well as with Conservation Commission and any other permitting that we need to do in the town. Another member of our team that unfortunately was not here tonight, Jeffrey Dirk from Vanessa Associates, prepared all the traffic-related information. I'm going to try my best to fill in for him. For those of you that I'm sure you've heard many traffic presentations, it's a specialized area. I'll do my best for it, but it's going to be relatively quick. And if there are a lot of questions about traffic, I just request maybe the simple ones I can probably handle, but the more technical ones, if we could go to the next meeting on those, that would be terrific. I do have a series of slides prepared. Just run us through the site. Then I'm going to move over to that quick traffic presentation. I'm going to be as quick as I can here. I don't know how much battery I will be able to run through, but if it pops out in the middle, I did print all of these on board, so I can revert to that if I need to. The project location is right up near the Uxbridge-Douglas line. On the screen that I have up here, at the very top of that slide, you can see the interchange with Gilboa Street, Route 146 over in Uxbridge. Obviously, Gilboa Street I have labeled right there. The center of this screen, you can see the gravel pit with the solar facility right adjacent to it. That's where we're looking at developing this project. Zooming in a little bit more here, the total project site is about 5 parcels comprising 112 acres. We have legal frontage on both Gilboa Street and Northeast Main Street. The Gilboa Street property, it also encompasses the pond, it encompasses some other areas that we would likely cut off once we get underway here and we know exactly what the limits of this footprint will be, and have those owned by the town going forward. This area, in the wooded area over on the Uxbridge side, headed down towards the site. This area here is the current existing natural gas easement. There was also an abandoned electrical easement that came down through this area here. Outside the limits of this gravel pit, in through this wooded area, here, and then down towards the pond, it's just generally rolling topography, mature forested areas. For the most part, this entire site consists of very, very good sand and gravels. I'm sure that comes as no surprise to anybody given the current use. And then we've identified several natural resource areas which we worked through an order of resource area delineation process with the Douglas Conservation Commission. We recently filed a notice of intent to the commission as well. And I believe we start that March 24th. 21st. Yeah, maybe that day. The next March is when we'll be there. This generally is the plan that we submitted for the ORAD. The one area that we did knock out of that was the land at Uxbridge because this is Douglas. There's the green area right up here that was not part of our ORAD request. We pulled that back. Basically what we found was the Mumford River comes in, flows into Gilboa Pond. Gilboa Pond has several areas of bordered vegetated wetlands. Then it flows over the existing dam back to the Mumford River. The area that you can see in blue is regulated as riverfront area, 200 feet back from the bank and the edge of that river. Those are the resource areas we identified. So that kind of set some of the boundaries of where we needed to be as far as our development goes. So what are we proposing? We're proposing a warehouse distribution facility just over 1.1 million square feet in total size. We have 691 parking spaces, just slightly over what your requirements are in your zoning bylaw. We also have loading on both sides of this building, about 180 loading docks that we're currently showing. On the outbound side of those loading docks, which would be along here, and along here, we also have trailer parking spaces. Conveniently located such that when the trucks do pull in, they drop their trailers at the dock. Trailers can then be moved to the outboard spaces to make way for the new trucks. Access, there's 2 access points on the site. I mentioned Northeast Main Street. And now what we're proposing is that for that access is a emergency access only. When we get to the traffic study later, we did have our traffic consultants look at what would happen if we opened that up for passenger cars, what he thought might go out there. But I think our preference would be that that's emergency only. You can see on this plan that we have up here on the screen, that line right there is actually a gate. And our proposal to the town is that whatever the fire department wants to do for access on the gate, whether it's a Knox box, some kind of a remote system, whatever they prefer, we're more than happy to operate that. During our technical review committee meeting, we also talked about maybe putting either a secondary gate or relocating the gate a little bit closer to Northeast Main Street. We agreed. We thought that probably made a little bit more sense. I think actually the comment that I made was that when I was 17 years old, I would have loved to have found a 600 or 700 foot long road that nobody can see now. That would have been great. So if we could put that gate up closer to Northeast Main Street, I think that would be a pretty beneficial change. Primary access to the project, I believe, will be out onto Gilboa Street. If you're familiar with the area, you'll know that we'll need to cross over the Mumford River with that. What we're proposing to get across that river, and we'll get into a lot more detail with that with the Conservation Commission, but generally what we're proposing is a complete span across, not a culvert, but there will be 2 separate concrete abutments constructed with sheet piles right in front of them to help avoid the river itself, and then steel beams going across with concrete deck, staying completely out of the riverbank in those areas. The access drive will come down off the site and turn onto Gilboa Street. If you look at the detailed plans, and I realize it's a thick plan set, and just given the size of the property and the size of the project, turned into a lot of sheets. But the way we've configured that driveway is such that trucks can only turn to the right. In an emergency, if a fire truck came out of there and wanted to turn left, they could do it, but a full-size tractor trailer truck will not be able to turn left. That was done on purpose. We want all those trucks to go up to Route 146. So one of the things that Frank kind of hinted about was the general nature of the tenants, at least the national tenants, usually dry goods, consumer goods, things like that. Those truck drivers are all professional over-the-road drivers, many of which are employed right by those companies. They're tracked with GPS. They know exactly when the trucks are on, when the trucks are off, what those guys are doing, where they're doing it all the time, 24/7. And it's in their best interest to get to the highway as quick as possible. So we thought we'd make sure they got to the highway as quick as possible. Other features of this site, as you can see, we've proposed parking on 2 sides here. That's in the event that this building does get subdivided, if there's 2 tenants that come along. But I think the limit would really be probably 2. Right. You're not going to chop this up into anything more than 2. So 2 tenants at the most would be enough. Stormwater management for the project. We've tried to take, what happens now, the current hydrology of the site is the rain falls onto the gravel pit and soaks into the ground. There's virtually no runoff that comes off of this property. There's a little bit of runoff that comes off some of the wooded areas that does lead down to the river, but for the most part, in the gravel pit proper, which you can see through this, we purposely kind of screened this back so you can see through it here, it all just goes back into the ground. So we've tried to replicate that to the extent that we can. Now, we're taking a gravel pit, we're introducing a 1.1 million square foot building with a lot of loading areas and a lot of parking areas. So what that requires us to do is start to get rather creative and have some very, very large infiltration galleries. So the green boxes that you can see below the building in this location, another one right up here, a smaller one here, are actually infiltration chambers. As designed, those are approximately 15 feet deep. The reason we can go that deep on them without any kind of specialized construction is that this site actually has about 70 feet of topographic relief from the upper right-hand corner of the building to the lower left-hand corner of the building. Means we're cutting about 35 feet on one side and filling about the same on the other side. So when we go to put in those 15-foot deep tanks, basically we start to fill, put the tanks in the ground, and then just keep filling up around it on that lower side. In addition to those infiltration systems, what we've also done is a surface basin up in this area right here. And we've directed pretty much everything that's paved to those facilities, between the underground system and that surface basin. The only area that's paved that doesn't go to those facilities stretches from about where my pointer is right now, down that road. And what we've done is just before we get to the bridge, we have another small infiltration system with a turnout that'll help dissipate the water before it runs down, shuts down into the river. So what we end up doing here is we end up actually meeting or exceeding every single one of the applicable Massachusetts stormwater standards. Obviously, this is not a redevelopment, so we don't hit that one. We don't try to hit that one. This is classified as a LUPL. Again, we'll get into more of that with Conservation Commission, but what that really means is that we have to do a little bit more pre-treatment than we would otherwise have to do if this was any other type of development. We certainly did pre versus post on the stormwater, and then the water quality and the stormwater recharge we actually exceed what is required by the state. Utility connections for the site. They're fairly straightforward for a project of this magnitude and this size. I was very, very surprised. You have a very strong infrastructure as it stands. There's an infrastructure project that's going to be going on Gilboa Street that we've been coordinating with the designers of that to make sure that our sewer's coming out in the right spot, or our water's coming out in the right spot, so we can connect to that. Early on in the project, it was requested that if we start at Northeast Main Street, connect to the main there, and run a 12-inch main across our site to Gilboa Street, close that loop off, that would greatly help your overall water supply system. We've done that. We've basically taken a connection here in Northeast Main Street, run it all the way across, under our access drive, back out to Gilboa, 12-inch main, runs all the way across. The way we're feeding our building is we're going to tie into that 12-inch main. We're going to run our domestic service straight down through here, that blue line that you can see. Our fire service will actually come off that 12-inch main. This brown dot you see right there will be a fire storage tank. We don't have the final size of that yet. Once the fire protection engineer gets in there, starts doing their design work inside the building, they'll be able to get us the final size. I believe the one that's shown on this plan is 150,000 gallons. It could be as high as 200,000 gallons, but it's going to be in that range somewhere. It's going to be a significant water storage tank. That'll be fed off that 12-inch main, store the water for the fire protection system. Fire protection system calls for the sprinklers to go off or something. It'll feed from there into the building, hit a fire pump. Fire pump will discharge a line back out and around. So you can see this blue line that kind of comes around the outside of this building. That'll pressurize that main. All of the on-site hydrants come off of that main. And just to provide a little bit of redundancy in the event something does happen to that fire pump, it fails to come on, power outage, something like that, there is a cross connection inside the building that maintains pressure in that main, in that outside loop from the municipal. Sanitary sewer is pretty straightforward. The two upper corners of the building both feed gravity. That's this orange line that you can see right here. So we're going to run gravity up across the site and back down to Gilboa Street. We'll tie into the infrastructure. As part of that infrastructure that is being done, I believe the pump station that's down there is going to be upgraded as well. So, again, that's one of those areas we've been coordinating with the designers of that, just to make sure that they know where our pipes are coming out, and we know where the manholes are going to be, so there's no confusion there. Gas, electric, telecommunications, all underground systems coming up off of Gilboa Street. We're not proposing any poles along that road or in and around the site. So, now we go to the traffic. So this is where I'm going to race through this as much as I can. So what we did is the traffic study that we started out with, we knew right from day one all the trucks were going to go to the right, come out of the site, go to the right. The question was, what are we going to do out at Northeast Main Street? And I guess once you cross over to Uxbridge, it's known as West Hartford Avenue. So what do we do with the cars there? The initial assumption was that we'll just let cars out there. We won't let trucks out there and see what happens. So the way we did this, traffic study is we performed traffic counts in April and October 2021. Those were adjusted for, Mass DOT has criteria to not only adjust for seasonal, but the last couple of years they've come up with their criteria to adjust for the fact that we've been under the pandemic and there isn't much traffic on the road. So we raised it for that as well. We always get asked, well, what about COVID? Why, the cars that you counted, there's just not that many of them on the road anymore compared to what it used to be. Mass DOT has a factor that they apply to. Then we start to look at the crash data at all the intersections that we looked at. We only found one of the intersections, and I believe they looked at 9 intersections. Only one of them had rates that exceeded the Mass DOT average crash rate. That would be Gilboa Street intersection. Then we looked at future traffic growth. So what that consists of is taking a look in the general area that would, anything that would contribute traffic to Gilboa Street, Northeast Main Street, the general area that have applied for permits, whether it's through the town of Douglas, town of Uxbridge, Mass DOT, whatever. We found one, Blackstone Logistics Center. And rather than do our own analysis and try to pick our own counts, we just took their traffic study, took their numbers right out of it. And that's what we got to track, future traffic growth. Background traffic growth. Again, because of COVID, we kind of went to the pre-COVID days to look at what the typical average growth has been. 2015 to 2019, Mass DOT reports about 1.24% per year traffic growth. We used 1.5% just to have some slightly conservative numbers. We look for roadway improvement projects. There's no real significant roadway improvement projects that would open up additional traffic. We're looking for projects such as, adding lanes to highways, greatly widening or putting traffic signals on some of your local roadways. There's just none out there. So then what we do is we take all of that information, we put it together, and we can come up with what we call the no-build scenario. And we need to look out into the future. We usually look 6 to 7 years in advance. So we look at 2029. We call this our 2029 no-build traffic model. Then we look at what is this project going to do? How much traffic is this particular project going to generate? With these types of warehouses, there's probably a good half dozen different land use codes that you can use. There's a standard warehouse, there's a high cube warehouse, there's a refrigerated warehouse. In this case, we use, it's called Land Use Code 155. We use a high cube fulfillment center warehouse. The reason we use that's the worst case scenario traffic. Those land use codes for this type of use, those are the ones that generate the most. And this is what we came up with for numbers. We're looking at, on your average weekday daily, total trips, and a trip means a car driving in or a truck driving in. Another trip is a vehicle driving out. So if you take total trips and divide it by 2, that's the number of actual vehicles that were, individual vehicles that we're talking about. Well, the traffic guys all speak in trips, so I'm just going to speak in trips. So we've got about 2,000 total trips on your average weekday daily. Of that, about 1,742 are going to be passenger cars, 254 will be trucks. That's your total daily numbers. During your peak hours, your morning peak hour and your evening peak hour, we have those split out up here on the screen as well. 143 passenger car trips and 22 truck trips. So that's 72 cars and 11 trucks during that peak hour. Likewise, for the PM peak hour, 165 and 11, respectively, for the cars and trucks. Then we decide what's the distribution going to be? Where are they going to go? When they leave the site, or how do they get to the site? What do they do? As I mentioned on the left, there's our distribution for the trucks. You see 100% come from 146, 100% go back to 146. That's it. There's no question about that. We decided on the cars. We initially came up with a split of 47-53 on the cars. 53% would go out towards 146, 47% would take a left onto Gilboa and go back towards town. And then there's that 16% that we have there, and that's why this says 31, not 47. The 16%, if we open that back door, that back gate up for cars, that's how many we think would go out there. When they finished the distribution model, they actually took that 16%, they ran it down Northeast Main Street and brought it into the intersection of Main Street, which is where they would have ended up if they had gone out on Gilboa. So it's that same car, whether they turn left on Gilboa or they come out the backside, ends up in the same spot. That's the intersection of Northeast. Then we take the traffic and we put it on the distribution and we figure out the numbers. So here we go. The weekday AM passenger car distribution. Where are they all going at that peak? This shows 65 cars coming off of Route 146 turning into the site. 38 cars coming down Gilboa Street turning into the site. We've got 11 and 6 turning right and left respectively. And this is the AM peak. The PM peak kind of reverses that a little bit. The traffic coming in is a little bit lighter. The traffic going out is a little bit heavier. But again, those are the numbers, and these are passenger cars. The trucks, we only have 11. 11 going in each direction in the morning in the AM peak. And in the PM, you got 5 coming in, 6 going out, total of the 11 trips. So once they run all the analysis, what do they come up with? These are the results that they come up with. They compare the 2021 existing trips, what's out there today. And those are the counts that they know, and they adjusted it. Then they look at the 2029 no build, what happens if this project doesn't happen. And then the 2029 build, what happens with this project over there. And then the next column over, there is the amount of increase. So Lackey Dam Road, northeast of Route 146, we're going to have 5 cars. Here we right?
Yeah, we just, page 19 of the traffic study towards the back.
So we have, on our weekday morning, we had 5 cars, and our weekday evening, we had 5 cars, and that's during the peak hours. Route 146, 58 and 67, keep in mind, just to give some perspective on that, that's about 1 car per minute. The rest of the areas were fairly minimal. We did on Main Street, west of Bowen Court, come up with 49 to 56 cars, and that's the morning peak and the PM peak. And again, like I said, just for some perspective, that's about 1 car per minute, a little bit less. They looked at all the various intersections that I mentioned. I believe there were 8 or 9 intersections they looked at, and they looked at them based on level of service. The level of service really is a function of how long do you sit at that intersection before you can go about your movement. Turn right, turn left, turn straight. How long do you sit there? Rated on a scale of A to F. So all the intersections that they looked at, there was no change in level of service except for 2. Route 146 off-ramp, eastbound, left turn through in a straight through movement, goes from a D to an E, and the delay on that increases from 31.8 seconds to 35.2 seconds. So that means you're going to sit for about 4 seconds extra at that intersection. Davis Street, Northeast Main Street, the Davis Street, if you're heading northbound, trying to take a left turn or a right turn, that also went from a D to an E. The delay decreased from 32 seconds to 35.7 seconds. Again, it's about a 4-second increase if you're going to sit at that intersection above what you do today. All of the other ones stayed in the same category. They didn't change. So what are the conclusions of the traffic study? The conclusions of the traffic study, the final traffic study, the project will not result in any significant impact or delay on vehicle queuing over anticipated future conditions, with the majority of the intersections continuing to operate at level of service D or better. Vehicles exiting the site drive will experience a few delays, up to 3 vehicles in line. 3 vehicles at that site drive. So I was actually pretty impressed by that. We did run it for traffic signal warrants to see if one was going to be needed there. We just don't have any stacking. That was pretty impressive. All the lines of sight at both Gilboa Street and Northeast Main Street exceed the minimum required for lines of sight for intersections. And completely independent of the project, whether this project happens or not, the traffic study found that Latch Dam Road, Route 146, northbound ramps, Davis Street, Northeast Main Street, and the North Street, Gilboa Street intersections were at or near capacity today as they exist. Once we put on the traffic from this project, we get additional queues of up to 3 vehicles on each of those. That's it. We have to do. And then at the North Street, Gilboa Street, as I mentioned earlier, that has a crash rate above, just slightly above the Mass DOT average for similar style intersections. So what do we do? The recommendations that Vanessa's proposed is that at that Gilboa and North Street intersection, the project team, and that's us that are standing here as well as Jeremy Dirk, facilitate the completion of a road safety audit to identify improvement strategies and then designing and constructing short-term improvements. What we expect is some of the things that are going to come out of there are going to be increased sight lines, so you can just generally see better. Better signage, maybe some lighting there. And I'm not talking stoplights, traffic lights. I'm talking just general street lights. Those are the kind of things they'll be looking at. At Davis Street, North Street, look at a functional design report and concept plans to identify potential improvement strategies for the town. The report and the concept plans we think should be provided to the town prior to the certificate of occupancy for the building. We're not committing to any construction there, but what we are committing to do is studying that a little bit further and finding out what are the issues, what's really going on. And that was that other intersection that they identified has a problem. And then the third item that they think are important, and I think this is actually just a kind of shift throughout the industry, not only for these types of buildings, but for a lot of, whatever's left of being built for office-style buildings or retail or any of that, is to implement some transportation demand measures. And what are those? So those are things like encouraging ride share, encouraging carpooling, encouraging bicycle use by putting in bike racks, storage, lockers and things like that inside the building. providing break rooms that are a little bit more adequate than just a chair and a table. It would include some minor cooking facilities or refrigeration facilities, additional water and things like that, so employees don't have to go out for lunch every single day. Encouraging direct deposit. Employees don't have to go to the bank every day. Little things like that that can be implemented. There's not here in Douglas. You don't have the T. You don't have a subway system. It's not in the city, so we wouldn't be looking at having Uber come here every single day, or walking to work every single day, or taking the T, or taking commuter rail. But there's other things that they could be looking at. Like I said, ride share, bicycle strategies, things like that. So those are some of the things that they like to implement inside as well. The two big questions we always get asked for these kind of things is, what is this thing going to look like, and who's going to be in there? Unfortunately, I can't answer those directly. I can tell you about what it's going to look like. It's going to look very similar to this. So this building is a building that's actually under construction right now, not too far away in Plainville, Massachusetts. This is a very typical CRG building. They have red accents on the corners. This is set up similar to the building that we're proposing here. As you can see, there's loading on both sides. There's trailer parking on both sides and things like that. So it will look generally like this. This is not this building. This is not this site. I will caution you. Oh, I needed to put those words on. And then, as Frank spoke to earlier, for their typical tenants, this is a listing of some of their typical tenants. As you can see, it's mainly household goods. A lot of the things that you probably have in your homes right now are the types of things and the types of tenants that these folks are. I got through it. My battery didn't die. Hopefully, I didn't break it too much. And with the exception of in-depth traffic study questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, board, who would like to start? Mr. Marks.
Chair. You own this piece of property now. Does that encompass the pond also? You mentioned Gilboa Pond. Is the pond part of the purchase of the property?
We don't own the property yet.
Oh. If you did own it, would you own the pond also? Would that be part of the property? No, that just borders?
Well,
it would go into the town. The town owns that land
Right, okay. Second, yeah, so you won't assume any liability for the dam that's there either. That's not part of this project at all either?
No, that's not right.
No, okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, may I piggyback off of that?
Sure.
So I understand that assuming everything is successful with this project, there would be an A&R lot division combination of lots heading into the future.
Yep.
So
Yeah, it would be, it would be the 81X first to put them all together, and then the A&R to kick back.
thank you.
I got two. So it's designed for all truck traffic to turn right out of the lot to 146, 100%.
Correct.
Just worst case scenario, bad crash in front of Lackey Dam Road Shell Station on the highway, trucks can't get on the highway. Is there a backup plan for where those trucks are going to go, or are they going to be queuing on the property?
Hold them on the property.
Okay.
They, like I said, these guys, they have no desire to go through neighborhoods, no desire to go through secondary roads. They want to be on the highway. But
Okay. Question had to be asked. And then you mentioned that you plan on hooking up to the gas utility. Right now, there is no gas in town. Do you plan on bringing gas in?
no, we're under the understanding it's coming now.
Okay.
Master.
but if it didn't get put in, we could still build a building.
Okay. And then just one comment. I know you were talking about rideshare. I don't know if you've been in contact with the Worcester Regional Transit Authority to see if they can get a bus stop or something in the future in that area.
No, that's a good idea. And I'm going to pass that off to Jeff Durkin. So that's
Correct, Mr. Schultz?
That's all.
Okay. Mr. Zwicker, do you want to?
No, don't have that.
Mr. Sokrat?
What do you anticipate feet on the ground in the building during the day if you're fully
occupied by whatever tenants you have.
300 to 500 employees, right?
As much as we'd love to go down to these places and everything else, I imagine that you're going to try to have foods available there, kitchens, maybe have a caterer or somebody comes in.
Yeah,
That many people, I'm not saying like Apple or something like that, that's there for employees.
Right. Well, okay, so we always put break rooms in,
Yeah.
and as Todd had already mentioned,
Yes.
based on their PDM, they have to be more than just bare necessities.
Right.
We make nice break rooms for employees and truckers. The truckers' facilities are even nicer than the employees' facilities, you can imagine. But you also think to yourself intuitively, the type of person that takes your job works in this building, they're not necessarily going out to lunch. When I go to our buildings, and I go to them all the time all over the nation, there's a lot of Tupperware, there's a lot of brown bags, there's a lot of people bringing lunch to work. Microwaves. Yeah. So we'll have a bank of microwaves that are more than sufficient for most of the crew. And we also have outside facilities on occasion, and that's always up to the tenant. Again, this is inspector of the building. We don't know exactly who's going to move into it. We know it's going to be like a Fortune 50, Fortune 100 of consumer non-durables. They usually come in, they'll look at the site plan and say, can we put a volleyball court here? Can we put some picnic tables over here? And they accommodate that type of practice.
Just, tempering the amount of trips during that lunchtime hour, which, is good for businesses in town, but it could exacerbate traffic along.
Yeah, that's one of the primary goals of those TDM measures.
I have a couple. 3,500 per shift, or you running 3 shifts, 24/7?
Probably.
Probably what? 3 shifts and 300 people per shift?
No, 300 to 500 total employees. So we're limited by the amount of parking, okay, right? How many parking spaces do we have on the left-hand side?
538. About 70.
Okay, so let's say 600. What we usually do is take the amount of employees that we think are going to be in the building and have an overlap for shift change, right? So we don't anticipate there are going to be 500 times 3 shifts.
You, in your traffic study, you're not talking about any trucks coming in from town. Correct. What about all your trucks coming up 395? They're gonna come to the town. They're not gonna go, there's no other way they're gonna get there.
I think they're going to have to get on the 146.
How? They're gonna go through town, Route 16?
We'll check with the traffic guys on that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're not mentioning at all about 395. I know 146 is there. You know, the trucks ain't just gonna go 146, they're gonna go 395.
We'll check with that.
So from 395, the only way they're gonna get across there is Route 16, and they're not gonna go all the way up to Central Turnpike.
There's 146 to Central Pike. That's
They're not gonna go north and come back down south.
They can't.
well,
That's what I'm saying, they're coming up from the south.
But the question is, are you trucks that are coming?
Yeah.
Trucks, we understand the trucks leaving, you take a right. That's what Mike is saying is the trucks that are coming in, are they able to take a right coming either through Douglas in there, or they have to come down 146 and go to Pike?
The way that's configured right now, no, they cannot. They cannot come up Gilboa Street and take a right into it. They can't do it.
Okay.
Because just the way we've got it geometrically aligned. Well, when we talk to our traffic guys about that 395 and see what they say.
Because it's gonna, I mean, I'm just telling you, it's gonna happen. I mean, they're gonna do it. That's in your parking lot area, this is gonna be all tractor trailer? I'm assuming not delivery truck?
Well, it could be a mix. Right. I doubt there are going to be a lot of delivery trucks just because of the location of this facility in the macro, right? The smaller delivery trucks tend to be inside 128, right? A little bit closer to the city. This is a bigger distribution facility for what we call more bulk shipments. So they come in with 53-foot trailers in one side. They take all the stuff off of that truck. They divvy it up into individualized pallets, and they put it on the other side for outgoing freight to the stores. That's basically what we're talking about.
Will you be having an area for stripping the snow off the trailers?
Yeah.
Because that's
One of the big structures.
Yep.
Yes.
We'll just have copies on the plan.
Yeah, that'll.
Yeah, we can show one on
As we
there.
get further into this, there's going to be more detail, but
We can show one on there for now. The problem is if I put one on there now, I can guarantee that's not where it's going to end up
Correct. Yeah.
based on whoever comes. We do the same thing, like usually these facilities have a check-in or check-in shack somewhere.
Yeah.
Again, same thing. The way we handle that is, say this check-in shack ends up being, where's my dot? There it is. Let's say it ends up being right there. We come back to the planning board, ask, what do we need for amendment on that? Because we know it's going to change. I just can't possibly predict where it's going to go.
Through the chair,
Yes?
are you going to have a wash facility for the vehicles or a de-icing facility for the vehicles at wintertime?
I don't think so.
There's usually no on-site maintenance.
I mean, as a landlord, we get very concerned about environmental liability, right? We don't allow gas pumps in our buildings. We don't allow anything that could produce any long-standing liabilities for us.
Okay.
And the tenants are good with that.
Yep. Good. Thank you.
No repair, no on-site repair, anything like that.
Okay.
Okay, a couple of questions. So the 12-inch main is running underneath the driveway, not on the side?
No.
So for maintenance or anything? No good? Okay. There's a couple, there was C141 has William Drive on it instead of Gilboa. Minor thing. Do you have the detailed transportation improvement program? In the traffic study, they say that it's been prepared already.
Yeah, so what we got the final, so if you notice in that book right there.
Is draft, yeah.
Okay. So we got the final the other day. I did email a copy of it to Matthew. We can get copies printed out.
Okay, so the detailed transportation improvement program is in there?
It is.
Okay.
All right. How many copies?
Electronic is good. Maybe three copies?
Three
Three
copies?
editions? Yeah, oh, yeah, the final?
Yep.
How many?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So this is, the final copy was provided to the peer review consultant and anticipated it is going to change following peer.
Okay, so, yeah, let's hold off. We'll just do electronic for
Okay,
now.
so
And
Matthew
then-
has the electronic copy.
Yeah. And then noise, can you speak to noise for any abutter concerns?
Sure. So we have two obvious abutters. We have this. We have this neighborhood along this side, and then we have the solar panels. I'm pretty sure the solar panels we're going to be okay with. The abutters to the right on this drawing, this building's actually, and this whole facility is actually located about 40 to 50 feet below them in elevation, with a significant cut on that side. So we haven't proposed any sound walls and barriers or anything like that on the plan north, the upper part of this, we haven't proposed anything there. It's all undeveloped land going across through there. Likewise, for the area from the building looking towards Gilboa Pond, there's a minimum of 100-foot buffer along there that we're not touching. The area that's shaded in the green, the artificial green, not the natural photograph green, that'll be planted. But we're leaving that entire buffer to, so we don't have any proposed sound levels there.
Question for me. Those trees that we're not touching, you said it's a 300-foot buffer?
100.
100. They're going to be higher than the top of the building or lower? The existing trees?
The trees that are further up will be higher. I don't know about the trees right at the
I'm
edge
just
of the one.
anticipating the question from what we're coming, or what will look like.
You'll basically looking at trees.
Yeah. Did you prepare any visuals
We have not yet.
as a, okay, perfect.
Yeah, usually it's better to get some feedback from you folks before we,
Okay.
otherwise we're just, again. we're
Well, like a
guessing.
landscaping type of,
There's a landscaping plan,
So,
but we haven't prepared a rendering.
from, yeah, from the street, to your point, from the roadway. And you are able to control the truckers for queuing in
Yes.
case of a, okay. All right.
So like I said, there's 90% of the time it's checking gates here. And
Okay.
if we do understand,
Okay.
and even if there aren't checking gates, if they find out there's a problem there, they just won't dispatch.
Okay, okay, okay. All right, anyone have follow-up questions? Yes? Yes.
Your upper concrete foundation, you're going to need 40, 50 feet below.
40 or 50 feet below.
I don't know if I'm saying,
Yeah, below
Neighborhood
these,
of the right.
below these properties.
Correct.
Height of the building is 40 feet at the parapet. So it's what's known as a 40-foot clear building. So we're about 42 feet at the parapet. And that's above finish.
Following up on my friend here, Wes, is that on that right side where we've been told that that's the neighborhood over there, paramount that we get that right, because solar panels don't care, don't care. So that's climbing up 50 feet, and then we have trees on that hill that will be maintained as you can, and then some will be planted. You see the artificial green, and then you see some natural.
So in here, we can take a look at planting some additional trees
Yeah.
right through this area. Then all up through here, obviously, then this turn.
But that's climbing, and it has trees.
Correct. If you like, we can prepare a cross-section down through there.
Well, we're going to need it because we have neighbors that are going to be concerned about that.
I think you have to look at some sound, whether it's all band or depending on the grade you are there. You're sloping down from the slope down.
Yeah, we're sloping down a little bit, not nearly to the extent of the other side.
It's a valley, so that's not how much down to travel.
Let me take a look at what we can do.
Yeah, and as far as requesting the peer review to take a look, is that on their scope of work? Noise? Okay.
Madam Chair, just for the audience and such as myself, when we talk about peer review, we have consultants that we hire. As far as to look and review your project as we do with our project. So these are engineers that are looking out for the best for the town, independently supported by the planning board of the town to peer review the developers. So it's good to have them as part of our team here on behalf of the town.
Yes.
My concern, well, one thing that hasn't been mentioned is, well, the bunny neighbors down there in the bottom corner, is your backup alarms. You're well over 100 decibel on the backup alarm. So the nuisance factor down in that area, I know you have trees there, but there's nothing showing how will that prevent all noise, part of the noise? I mean, what's going to go on in that corner?
The bottom right.
Yeah, right where the houses are?
The only time, the only place you hear backup alarms or generators, the closest would be here, right?
Correct.
Talking about-
For the most part,
Yeah.
correct.
Well, they're going to be generated in other places, but it's going to be a consequence of the process, right? So in that particular place, are we doing some things?
I mean, I understand the rest of your project, but not particularly like the project we just did. That was a big deal, because we had neighbors almost in the same location across the street. And the big deal was they ended up having to put up a wall, because at 110 decibels, at 6 o'clock at night or anything like that, I don't care if you're at the other end of the building on a quiet night, you're gonna hear it. So it needs to be looked at.
Well, as I mentioned, we're going to do whatever's right? We're going to build this project right. So if that's a source of a problem, we're going to put a design that negates it, right? So we're going to get on that.
And there might not be.
We'll take it on that.
No, it needs to.
But we should take it on the table.
So we should take a look at it.
Yeah, let's put it to the audience. So, name and address, I'll start from the left to the right. Name and address, questions, comments.
I have a question. I live on Gilboa Street.
I'm sorry, name and address,
My name
please,
is
for the
Barbara.
record.
My name is Barbara Bowie. I own 8688 Gilboa, the big duplex up on the hill. My biggest concern is that some protected wildlife, and I saw a bald eagle land right where your trucks are going to be parked the other day, which breaks my heart. I've had egrets there. We have Katie geese that come, it's beautiful. And my concern is the noise is going to scare these protected, extinct animals, birds away. Never mind the ecosystem of the plants that are there, the animals that live in that pond. It just really concerns me. There's history in that Gilboa pond that goes way back to this town. And the noise and the traffic, let alone accidents at intersections. I've had accidents right in front of my house It's crazy. So I'm extremely concerned about cutting down more trees. I have pictures here from the sand pit of the deforestation just from the sand pit, where I can look out my window and see sunlight through, and I see less birds. But we pulled an essay for a beautiful bald eagle, which I do see, which I know that will go away. And the traffic really concerns me. I live on that street, and it's nonstop. And COVID has slowed down. Gas prices right now have slowed down, but it's going to pick up. And that really, there's buses, there's children that live there. Also, the way the road comes out, my concern is, where is the boundary between Mumford River and Gilboa Pond, and why can't you cut over to that road that goes down behind Shell Station and exit that way? And that way you can leave the trees, leave the forest, so the animals can go there and be protected. It's really disturbing to me. Sorry.
Did you want to respond, or shall you?
What was the question?
The question is, how are you going to protect the wildlife? It's a
Obviously, wildlife is going to be displaced if you build this building. Right?
It is.
So,
And that's a protected pond.
We're required by law.
Yeah, if you could just speak through the chair, sorry,
I'm sorry.
to her question.
Speak here.
Yes, sorry. So we're not back and forth like
I've
this.
got you.
So-
So obviously, wildlife will be displaced by this building, that's a given. We are required by law, right? So it's basically here, to all fish and wildlife laws. So we're not going to displace anything in danger. If we find anything in danger, the project comes to a halt. You see it on the news all the time. Have we done any of these studies, or will we, or are we?
We've done the state study, we have not done the federal study.
All this will be done, it will be completely compliant with all laws.
All right, next. Back name and address, please.
Yeah, Mike Keith, 462 Northeast Main Street. Just the noise issue, because I live right on the other side of that hill, and there's no trees and stuff like that, so.
Okay. The applicant
curious
will
about
address
noise.
that, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Name and
I got a
address.
question.
Name
I
and address,
represent
please.
Jeff Dean. I represent the abutter on the east side, on the northeast side of this project, up by the Uxbridge line.
Do you have an address?
I'm not really sure of it.
Okay.
It's Louise Dean that owns it, okay?
Yep.
Where exactly does that exit come out on Gilboa Street? Not on Old Lackadaim Road, on New Lackadaim Road, right?
It's right across.
Go ahead.
Reference the building there on the left. Or if you have a wider aerial.
Yeah, that's, go back to the beginning, I might have a wider.
Your first three slides.
That's good. Right there. So that, where that red dot is where the crossing of the Mumford.
So it's just beyond, just at the corner of Schuster's, the old Schuster's place.
Yes.
And you'll be removing more trees.
Please.
I'm sorry.
Thank
So
you.
you're not down towards the old Lackadaim Road. When 146 came through and they widened it, they took a little stub of the old Lackadaim Road and they isolated it. It's just on the side of the Shell station. Now, where is the Shell station right there?
Further down.
Yeah, that's
Oh, okay.
Red dot
All right.
Shell station?
That answers my question.
Old Lackadaim Road. right there.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Questions, concerns regarding this hearing in the room? No? Okay. Jake, could you read that for me? So now I'll move on to the Zoom participants. What?
Bob and Eric, Economic Development. Just one question, one comment for Ernie. The property does not include Gilboa Pond or the dam. We sold that at an auction last June, parcel 139-1, all of it, and part of 13844. It did not include the pond or the dam.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Okay?
Okay. There was one comment, Cindy Smith, I'm seeing a comment. If everyone could refrain from the chat because it's actually not available after the meeting for open meeting law. So she is requesting what the view will be from Gilboa Street. So we are going to get a rendering, right, in the future. So Cindy, we will get a rendering. If anyone on...
She was also just concerned with the noise.
Oh, and the noise. So we are addressing those two concerns. Do you see anyone online? If you could raise your hand. Can you see anybody? Can you add
Through the chair.
Yeah? You see it?
I got, on this traffic study, like on other projects, we had a traffic study done with delivery vans, and then we had a traffic study done with tractor trailers. We're only getting one on this aspect, where it's unknown what could be going in. It'd be nice to have them both, because as you know, it changes the whole scenario on what's going on, as far as traffic.
Well, Todd made reference to a category before, right? And it was utilization of land use code 155 as opposed to other land use codes as determined by IT.
Yeah, the building is a high cube fulfillment center.
So basically,
at
we use the
155.
most stringent data requirement dictated by IT.
The biggest traffic generator.
And that was the method by which the traffic engineer generated these numbers. So when he generated these numbers, he's using the most intensive use. By fact that we don't believe it's going to get, that's what we go by. That data dictated by that particular agency that's mandated by Mass DOT and everybody else. Right? So it's not like we can't get creative. We have to do what they tell us we have to do. There's a particular standard and method by which we calculate these things as dictated by that. So we're just following directions.
So it's more conservative than the last project that you tried to use, something that was...
If I can through the chair, but then there's reality of life, because I know where my wife was going to work, I think it was Best Buy had a warehouse, and in the mornings you'd be stuck in the traffic for 20 minutes because there'd be 50 trucks leaving the spot at 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. I understand why you're talking about tractor trailers coming in and coming out. But if you have small delivery vehicles and they're all going out for morning deliveries, no different than UPS out on Route 20 or any of them, it's a whole different game changer from what we're being given numbers for. And we're only seeing one side, I think.
This is what they're presenting to us, and they're giving us those numbers, and if there's something that changes, then they will have to come back and with different numbers. So I think, yeah?
Through the chair, since there has been comments with concern of the sound, can we request a sound study and have that presented to us? And if there's any issues in mitigating, stuff you would do to mitigate issues.
Okay. All right, I think we covered a lot. Yeah.
So typically what we do for sound studies, and as you can imagine, we probably get asked these a lot. So we can get somebody on there. What they'll do is they'll measure the ambient sound. They'll go out there in the next couple of weeks probably and put some sound recording devices up. They'll leave them up there for about a week, and then they'll just measure it through the course of the week. So if there's something that happens every Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock, a big bang, it'll record that. But they'll take a look at that ambient sound, and then we'll know what the levels are. And they can come up with some measures that will say, all right, what DEP, and I'm not sure off the top of my head if you have local sound regulations or not, but what DEP mandates is that you can't increase that ambient sound by more than 10 decibels at any given time during the day. So if it's really, really quiet at night, then it's got to be really, really quiet plus 10 decibels at night. And they will come up with some recommendations on how to maintain that. So we will tell them, we're concerned along these areas. And we'll obviously pick some of the areas that were discussed tonight. How do we maintain that 10 decibel or less increase? And what do we need to do to do it? That's what we'll find out from them. You need to put up a sound wall. You need to have some landscape berms. You need to do X, Y, Z. That's what our sound study is.
Great.
I don't know off the top of my head how long that'll take. Things right now are just taking forever. Asked anybody to get a survey for you lately, they're just forever. I'll check with them. There's 3 different firms that we use quite a bit. They're all well-known firms around the Commonwealth. I'm sure that BSC knows who they are as well. So we'll see what we can do. And get that one.
What continuation date is the applicant looking for? The 24th or the April 4th?
Why don't we, I think, why don't we come back on the 24th?
Okay.
Our traffic consultant here, so maybe
Okay.
when there are traffic questions, we can certainly get them wrapped up. I will not have the sound study by then, but the other end. And then it sounded like, my experience with BSC is that they turn around peer reviews pretty quick, so hopefully by then we'll at least have that. That's approved.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
you also being aware of conservation, do you want to do heritage and endangered species?
Everything.
Yeah, so that would
They're
be
going to
checked,
do
just
full
the
blown.
audience,
Yeah.
check, see if there's,
Yeah.
5 toes,
We're not going to mention any animals.
That's, we had to do it for my house too.
Yeah.
It's common.
I've spent a lot of time on that side. I haven't seen any.
Sloths.
It wasn't sloths, I'm sorry about it.
I don't want to even know what else you're talking about.
You would overrun them.
I haven't seen any of those either.
I will.
Right, so we did have to do, yeah.
That's right.
We did the National Heritage Screening and then we get ready for the federal.
Cross the T, dot the I.
24th?
I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to March 24th at 7 p.m.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Sokrat.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schultzberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There you are, sir.
Okay, next item on the agenda, let's, it's 8:11, just to let everyone know. All right. Sorry, my apologies, we have a busy schedule tonight. So next item on the agenda, public hearing, Mcintyre Loam Inc., application for special permit, 100 Davis Street, possible votes. Town of Douglas Planning Board, legal notice of public hearing, name of applicant, Mcintyre Loam Inc., John A. Taylor Construction Co. Inc., and Second Generation Partners LLC. Date and time of public hearing, Thursday, March 10th, 2022 at 7:10 p.m. Subject matter of the hearing, the applicant is requesting a special permit from the Douglas Planning Board pursuant to the Douglas zoning bylaws, section 9.3 and appendix A, section D, industrial 1A, project description. The project consists of manufacturing use, including processing, fabrication, and assembly conducted outside a building. Project site and location, 100 Davis Street, Douglas, Mass. Assessors map 168, parcel 7, 8, and 9. Place of public hearing, Douglas Municipal Center, resource room 29 Depot Street. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and date certain designated. Visit the douglas-ma.gov for the agenda and Zoom information. A copy of the application is available for review during regular business hours in the Douglas Community Development Department, 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass. Legal notice placed Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022, and March 1st, 2022. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing? Motion made by Mr. Stevens.
Second.
Second by Mr. Zwicker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, name and address.
Good evening, Tom McIntyre, the applicant for McIntyre Loom. Up here is a map of a subdivision that you all approved at the tail end of 2021. We are here for a special permit, as described by the chair, on lot 6 here, and that's for outdoor manufacturing and processing, which is this board is the special permit granted authority for that. So we currently operate at 470 Northeast Main Street, the yard that was the feature of the last one. What we're doing here is picking up that operation, moving it to the site in part to facilitate the development of that warehouse. property you're looking at is just a tick under 21 acres. You can see it's roughly rectangular. This is about 1,150 feet. This is about 1050, 800, 775, I think. So we have frontage off of Legacy Circle here, which is not built yet. It's just been approved. And this is the Tennessee gas pipeline, which effectively forms the western boundary of the lots. A special permit, a special permit calls for consideration of 6 factors in the bylaws, and I'll just go through them. It's all in your written materials, but I'll go through them and give a brief summary of each. So, first is traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. This is an 800-foot road. There'll be additional room in the site. We don't anticipate any queuing onto public streets. We'll have adequate space on the lot to facilitate this use that's requested. And I should actually back up, because the special use we're really seeking is for the processing of soils, gravel, sand, rock. Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself on that one. And by primarily using stone crushing equipment and crushing plants and the heavy equipment that associates with that. So, all right, going back to traffic flow and safety, which is factor 1. That use requires trucking some things in, but it's on an 800-foot road here. Probably a little lot, so there's not going to be any queuing on public ways. There's going to be adequate spaces to dump the loads that are imported. The second factor is social, economic, community needs served by the proposal. First, the use on the site will facilitate and ensure an adequate local supply of construction and building materials, including for beautification of town properties. And I think equally important is by moving, we're able to facilitate that building, which is going to be a tremendous tax and economic boon to the town. I think we heard 500 jobs earlier. I've heard estimates of over $1 million of tax revenue on that site. So I think that factors into this one. Adequacy of utilities and public service. The crushing equipment and plants we use, they don't need any services. We don't need water, don't need electricity, don't need sewer. They're all run off of fuel. And fire police services, there's going to be no increase in that. The next factor, number 4, is neighborhood character and social structures. This is an industrial zone part of town. These are industrial lots. These are 2 industrial buildings that are there. It's going to fit in with the character. This is, we're proposing an industrial use on the lot. And I would add that by the size and location of the lot itself, it's going to occur in relative obscurity to the rest of the public. So I don't think anyone will even know what's going on here if you're just driving by on Davis Street or at the Monroe Street intersection. Impacts on the natural environment, usually have minimal impacts because of the size of the property. Any dust that happens will maintain on the property. And the potential fiscal impact, I think, has already been addressed. I think that the tax increase from the warehouse alone and the additional employment would be a tremendous boon to the town. Under the bylaws, for seeking an outdoor manufacturing permit, there's 2 other factors that need to be addressed. First is 5.3.3 in the bylaws. That section provides that any boundary with a residentially zoned district must be visually screened with at least 20 feet of vegetation. The north, east, and south, those are all zoned industrial, so that bylaw is inapplicable to those boundaries. This section is zoned rural agriculture, which is a residential district. We seek a waiver of this section, and we're doing it for 2 reasons. First, literal compliance is precluded as a matter of property law because the western boundary is burdened by the 50-foot gas easement, so we can't place vegetation on the boundary. And second, the purpose of the bylaw, which is to provide 20 foot of screening, is already adequately served by, this is about, I think, 700 feet of woods here. It comprises this. That's going to visually screen far in excess of the 20 feet we could plant there. So we request a waiver of that particular section 5.3.3. The bylaw table also requires us to consider the factors in 5.4. So 5.4.2 is noise. And very much the same reason. The nearest residence is about 900 feet away from this property line. Because of the vegetation in the way, because of the nature of crushing and screening materials, which generates piles, and because of the nature of business, noise is going to be contained to the site. Abutting residences won't be able to hear the site, won't be able to hear especially proposed use. 5.4.3 is solid waste storage. We don't intend to have a dumpster on site, so I don't think this is applicable to us, but even if we did, this use doesn't require any structures or buildings, and that bylaw says that if you have a dumpster, it needs to be at least 10 feet from structure, so even if we put a dumpster on there, it wouldn't be within 10 feet of a structure, so it would be compliance. And then there are some miscellaneous standards in 5.4.4. Outdoor lighting. This use is not going to be artificially lit in any manner. We're doing it by daylight. We likely will there'll be a gate somewhere near the entrance to be determined. We'll probably put a dim light out there that will stay on during the night, but again, no one's going to be able to see that, even from Davis Street, I would imagine. Cinders, dust, fumes, and gases. We maintain a water truck on site to ensure that this use is as dust-free as possible. So after crushing, we will hose the machine to make sure that dust doesn't spread. And the next one is we can't interfere with TV or radio signals. I don't see how that would happen. Flammable materials, we're not going to store anything flammable on site. The only thing that will be on site is diesel fuel. It's going to be common pumped into the vehicles and plants by food trucks. And the last one is edible materials. We're not going to store any edible materials on site. The only thing that will be there are employee pre-packed lunches. They'll take that out when they go at the end of the day. So that's about it on what it is. And the question before the board is whether the benefits to the town outweigh the potential adverse impacts. And I think that the answer to that is yes, in which case,
Mr. Stevens? Thank you.
Just a question.
Yes.
The legacy circle, that's the paved going in, that roadway?
Yeah, that is eventually, the anticipation on that is to eventually have that be a publicly accepted road.
You guys need that, we thought your operations good in there? Bring it out, leave it as a gravel area.
I'm not sure the exact answer to that. Looks like
May I answer that, Madam Chair? Just like any definitive subdivision, whether commercial, industrial, residential, they're going to have it to binder and gravel before they do top course at all. So typically, you'd like to see some of these uses go in before top course. The planning board does have control of the bond at that point and can dictate as to when that takes place, given the uses that are there.
Yeah, even at the street into Adivas.
And do you have the operation hours?
Yeah, our regular hours are 7 to 5. And that was Monday through Friday, 7 to 3 on Saturdays. Nothing on Sundays or holidays.
Good. Anyone else? Board questions? Yep.
To the chair, no butters list?
I have it.
Oh, you do have it? Okay, I was looking for it.
Would you like? Are you in a butter?
No, it's yours.
Would you like?
No, because on the print, you're not showing any houses at all. I know you said it was about 900 feet away. But I wish you had one that showed.
Give it away out.
There we go.
So this is a zoomed out version. This is not an official engineered map. This is from CS. The closest house is right here.
Okay.
This is, just to give everyone the lay of the land, Davis Street, Monroe Street intersection. This is Uxbridge. That's Uxbridge.
Okay. There you go. That's good. Good. And I think what you were saying, Les, is what? Were you going to have a binder down on that road before you start crushing operation? Or are you going to have,
I'd say most likely, yes.
The only reason I'm saying this, because if not, then you need to have something down for the trucks going on the...
Right.
Whether you do it in your entranceway off of Legacy Circle, to the side of gravel going in, or you're gonna pave that whole Legacy Circle and then do an entranceway of like 40 feet into your side. That's it. That's all.
That is going to be a binding course. We actually got a waiver at the subdivision phase so that that could be binding because we're crossing the pipeline and we anticipate, we don't want to pave it and then realize this doesn't work. Once we're on site, we need to move the inferior. We're just trying to do that once.
Anyone else on the board questions? The RA zoned parcel with the, you're requesting the waiver from the 20-foot buffer. Could you point to that?
This is the start of the RA district, right?
Right, okay, so, and why are you not maintaining, so that's the gas line anyway, so they maintain that portion along the property line anyway, so that's cleared anyway?
Yes.
At this moment?
Correct.
Yeah.
We, of course, can't burden that.
Right. Right, okay.
And this is, for the most part, I don't have aerial shots. This is mostly woods. I think it's almost all woods.
Right, but it could change.
It's wetlands, though, so I think it probably likely would not.
Likely would not, yes.
Always
I
good,
just
but
want to point that out, that the gas line is, the pipeline easement is there, and they're going to be clearing it anyway, so, okay. Okay. Anyone in the,
Chair, what's the width of the pipeline?
50 feet. 50 feet, I believe. Is that, it's 50.
it's,
Says on this. Doesn't say. It's next to us on the current site. It's 50 feet.
okay. Anyone in the audience have any questions? Mr. Benoit, did you have any comments on this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One thing I'd like to point out, if that's okay.
Yes.
This is just being the use application. I'm sure Mr. Mcintyre can add to this. There would be an anticipated, if this were to be approved, there would be an anticipated site plan review with more site details for a future plan. I believe the applicant is just looking to pursue the use at this time before going into further detail at this point.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. The intention will be to come back with a site plan review and probably earth removal permit on this lot.
May I add one more thing?
Yes.
Thank you. So this is being operated, as mentioned before, off of an approved commercial subdivision, industrial in this case. The land that's involved with this entire subdivision is industrial zone. And in our 1998 master plan, this industrial zoned areas is planned for development such as this. And one way or another, as these parcels find tenants, I think there's 11 of them altogether, or 7, excuse me. And these parcels will be developed one at a time, their own site plan reviews as goes depending on the uses. One way or the other, lots will be cleared for development at some point. I find that this operation is similar in that regard because they'll be clearing property that wouldn't be any different than something else that goes in. Obviously, it's a longer use, but I just wanted to make that clear for the folks at home and for the board this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone in the audience have questions, concerns regarding this item? Anyone on Zoom have any questions or concerns? You'd want to raise your hand. Mr. Davis, name and address, please.
Al Davis, 80 Orange Street. I'd like to speak in favor of the special permit request, and I know that my fellow boards of selectmen join in as well. This project is important for the CGC project, and we're very concerned about tax revenues, obviously, in the towns. I've been in here 25 years. We've come close on many occasions, but finally we have a project that will turn the town around financially and ensure us to be able to fund the needed projects we have going in the future to help the taxpayer keep we only have about 6% of our tax base currently is commercial. So this is a key project combined with CGC, and we urge that the planning board grant the request for a special permit and keep this project going. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak on this? On board? I think it's pretty clear, so, what's your pleasure? Anybody wanna,
I'm ready to go.
Maybe just to go through the checklist items that are required for a special permit, just have a consensus of the board that
no, there's a couple.
we agree with them.
Yep,
I can do that. Yep, so special permit factors to consider with this project: traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. I feel that this meets that. Social, economic, and community needs, which are served by the proposal. Number 2, I feel that the special permit meets that as well. Number 3, adequacy of utilities and other public services. I feel that this special permit meets that. Number 4, neighborhood character and social structures. I feel that this special permit meets that requirement. Number 5, impacts on natural environment. I feel that this special permit meets our special permit requirement. And potential fiscal impact, including impact on town services, tax base, and employment. I strongly feel that this project special permit meets that requirement. That's how I feel.
oh, thank you for letting us know how you feel. So, as far as the waivers requested, want to close the public hearing?
Sorry. I could address those if you'd like. I had 3. We have 3 waivers on the list, separate list.
I'm sorry, what?
One was the buffer.
Yeah.
Yep. We had a waiver of technical compliance with the plans because didn't think it made a lot of sense in this instance.
It's a
And
use, yeah.
we had a waiver of this parcel is in tax arrears, but the board waived that at the subdivision, and I think that by doing this, it's going to end up being at the closing.
And then the buffer
And the
along the RA.
We're going to take the
Whatever you
public
want.
hearing first.
Yeah, I'll entertain any motions that anyone would like to do.
No, we can do it either way. You can close the public hearing and grant the waivers, or you can...
Yeah, we're not accepting any more information, so we can close it. Motion made by Mr. Stevens, seconded by Mr. Sokrat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the hearing's closed. Now waivers requested. Motion?
I'll make a motion that we grant the waivers, the 3 waivers requested by the applicant.
Motion made by Mr. Marks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Zwicker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to grant the special permit.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Zwicker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schultzberg.
Discussion. May I?
Pause for Mr. Benoit.
Sorry, motion second, then discussion. Apologies. Just wanted the board to consider as part of their motion approval with condition.
With our standard conditions. Friendly amendment.
So moved.
Okay, friendly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
May I
thank
actually
you.
address the conditions because I'm not sure what the standard conditions are.
We'll pass that to you. We'll email them to you. And then before we sign it and stamp it in, we'll let you take a look. There were no special conditions. It's just our usual, the hours of operation and all those ones, which you did say 7 to 5 and then 7 to 3 on Saturdays.
Can I know the hearing is closed, but there were no conditions talked about till then. It is every intention for us to be 7 to 5, but I'm very reluctant to have conditions. The reason being is that it can be wielded, I think, as a weapon, as used as pretext to revoke permits in the future. I'm just picturing a scenario. Let's just say we're getting our machine serviced. The tech is a little late. He finishes at 5:05. Says, "Let's run a couple buckets through and make sure it works."
Okay, so
Well,
I
understand
let
what
me
you're-
just hold right there. So this was just for the use of outdoor manufacturing. So when you come in for your site plan approval, that would be something discussed at that time. So we are just allowing you to have that use because our use table requires a special permit for that specific use.
Agreed.
And then when you come in for your site plan review, then you can request those hours.
But it sounded like there was going to be a condition on the use.
May I?
Yeah, sure.
So we just say that so that the town and the applicant can go over the decision together and come to terms on the decision before it's up.
Okay. Sure. All right, I wasn't trying to get
Don't be worried.
too into it. I just,
We are giving you permission through the requirements of the zoning to do your activity.
Chair, we want you to be successful. So, I mean, daylight in the summer, it's 8:30 at night, it's not, it's still light out, you know? So, I mean, you can see in winter, you're probably gonna close at 4:35, you know?
and we're never going to do it at 8:30 at night. No, exactly. That was kind of my point. Yep.
Good.
No problem. Got it. Thank
We'll be
you.
seeing you again soon anyway.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, 7:20 PM public hearing, Sutton Douglas Development, application for a definitive subdivision, Mumford Road and 5 Forest Street, possible votes. Town of Douglas Planning Board, legal notice of public hearing, name of applicant, Flynn Build and Develop, name of owner, Sutton Douglas Development LLC, date and time of public hearing, Thursday, March 10th, 2022 at 7:20 PM. Subject matter of the hearing, in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Sections 81K to 81GG, and the Town of Douglas Rules and Regulations governing the subdivision of land in Douglas. The Douglas Planning Board will hold a public hearing on the application for a definitive subdivision plan. Project description: the project consists of a 31-lot, single-family residential development. Project site and location: Mumford Street, 5 Forest Street, and 61 Duval Road, Sutton, Douglas, Mass. Assessors map 135, parcel 12, maps 133, parcel 14, 15, and 27. Place of public hearing, Douglas Municipal Center, Resource Room 29, Depot Street, Douglas, Mass. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. Visit douglas-ma.gov for the agenda and Zoom information. A copy of the application is available for review during regular business hours in the Douglas Community Development Department, 29 Depot Street. Legal notice was placed February 22nd, 2022 and March 1st, 2022. Okay, name and address.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Benoit.
Madam Chairman, we have a motion to open the hearing.
I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing. Motion made by Mr. Stevens, second by Mr. Marks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Benoit.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Benoit, Wayne Bellick, Land Design Collaborative, here on behalf of Sutton Douglas Development. Also joining me tonight remotely, I believe, is Ken Flynn from Flynn Build and Develop. Tim, you there?
Hi, yes, well, thank you. Apologies, Madam Chair, members of the board, for not being able to be there in person, but I am here and will do my best to assist in the presentation, but Wayne will be leading the way. Appreciate your time, and again, apologies for not being able to be there in person.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Madam Chair, as an administrative item, we understand that this is going out to peer review. I do have a check here. For the peer review consultant for the sewer site. Again, Wayne Bellick, Land Design Collaborative. Just for the public, Madam Chair, if I could. We have received a preliminary plan approval from the planning board. You folks were notified at the definitive stage and not at the preliminary plan stage, because under Mass General Laws, it doesn't warrant, a preliminary plan doesn't warrant notification to abutters. However, because of the definitive stage, you've been notified. Likewise, when we went for the confirmation of the resource areas, all the wetlands on site, that required a permit that also required the notification of abutters. You will also receive, if you haven't already, a notification for the Conservation Commission hearing, which was scheduled, so this was scheduled for Monday night, but due to a failure by the Telegram Gazette, it will be.
I'm sorry, could you please speak through the chair, and then we're going to save the audience comments?
Sorry, Madam
That's
Chair.
okay.
I'm
That's
sorry.
all right. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
The comments hold through the chair. With that said, we have, so this process here is following the board's approval of the preliminary plan. So Madam Chair, as part of this process, as you know, you approved the preliminary plan, and basically we incorporated the comments of town staff in this board in the design of the subdivision. So we basically built upon it. The site, and if I could, Madam Chair, I did some discussion with Mr. Benoit and with the town planner and Sutton, because we know that there is some traffic going to the town of Sutton. Probably going to be quite an issue to discuss. We discussed perhaps having the traffic discussion on a separate night and focusing tonight on the existing conditions presentation and the general overall of this plan, including drainage thing.
Okay.
So the site is comprised of some 130 acres, as I said earlier, the wetlands, which is basically, it is located with North being straight up the sheet here. It is located south of Duval Road in here. Mumford Road is over in here. Torrey Road is over here. This is 61 Duval Road. There is the balance of the property that comes out to here and then eventually comes out to Conservation Drive here, 20-foot strip, 20-foot strip up to Duval Road, and then a 20-foot strip out to Mumford. The wetland system is a bordering vegetative wetland which borders the Mumford River, which comes through here, and a channel that comes through here. It's an intermittent channel that comes through here and eventually discharges out under Duval Road through a 36-inch culvert. The site, as you see, is wooded with the exception of a house over at 61 Duval Road. I failed to mention, also included in the property is 5 Forest Street, which is also a single-family home as well. The site is wooded. The topography on site varies anywhere from less than 5% to over 20%. The steeper relief on the topography is to the west side, generally through here, and in some isolated areas through here and here. The rest of the area, like I said, is 5% or less, which is down near the low-lying wetland areas. In terms of the soils on the site, it is hydrologic soil groups B, C, and D, primarily hydrologic soil group C, which is a sandy loam type material, and it does go into some D-type soils, which are loam type materials, and silt clay-like materials, primarily down in the wetland areas. The stormwater, existing hydrology that comes through the site, basically we looked at, when we analyzed the system, existing conditions and proposed, knowing that we have properties to the down gradient side, I know that if I lived in one of these houses, I would want to know, how does this development affect my property? I could give a flying Melinda of Joe's property, and I want to know about my property. So what we had done is when we analyzed the hydrology here, we analyzed it on a per lot basis. So we broke out the watershed areas pre and post as they flow to the property lines, and you'll see that in this 500-page stormwater report. The stormwater on site typically comes through midway through the development here, but at Forest Street. Forest Street, these roads, as you know, private roads up there, the pavement widths are anywhere between 16 and 18 feet. There's no stormwater system up there. Everything is unmitigated. There is no detention basins or anything. It's all unmitigated, flowing onto our site, and then continuing off in this direction. Some of it flows through here, some of it flows through these properties here, some of it flows down to here and then out this channel. Anything that comes off the higher side comes down and hits this channel And Madam Chair, I don't know if you recall during the conservation hearing process when we were discussing, and perhaps at the preliminary stage process, we were discussing this channel in here. It was created eons ago, like 100 years ago or so. And basically what happens is the runoff comes down, it hits this channel, and then it continues out to Duval Road under through the 36-inch culvert. The runoff from this side flows into the Mumford River and then continues down to Mumford Road. As you folks know, there's no public water, no public sewer in the area. Everything is private septics and wells. With that said, I'd like to present the proposed conditions plan. So as I said, Madam Chair, when we met with you folks and when we met informally with town staff, I know one of those meetings was with you last summer when we were looking at the preliminary plan. One of the concerns that we had from the fire chief and from both towns is initially we were looking at this as not a roadway per se, but an emergency vehicle access. As part of our preliminary plan development, we revised that and made that a road, and that is now referred to as Road D. The site is comprised of four roads. Road A, which measures about 2,700 feet. Road B, which measures about 1,300 feet. It's a loop. Road C measures about 680 feet. And Road D measures about 850 feet. Now, Road D, where it ties into Road A, this is important to note, it ties into Road A, leaving less than 1,000 feet of a cul-de-sac in here. This is important because under your subdivision rules and regs, maximum cul-de-sac length is 1,000 feet. The roadways are designed in accordance with your subdivision rules and regs. We are seeking some relief on some of the grades. We can get into that momentarily. Again, we're looking at 31 lots here, complying with the zoning dimensional requirements of both towns. We have 2 lots located in the town of Sutton, one of which is the existing house lot reconfigured, and then the second one is a proposed house lot right here, lot 29. Again, the stormwater, as part of this development, as part of this development, of those 31 lots, 2 lots are reduced frontage lots as allowed under the subdivision rules and regs with 40-foot frontage. Those 2 lots will lead to 2 upland areas out and back. So of this development, the 31 lots, we are setting aside 55 acres of open space. That open space is comprised of wetlands, but there are also several upland areas, beautiful walking through here. That is the site from a proposed perspective. As you can see, I have the houses generally laid out in here. Each lot will be designed with a septic system and well.
Does Mr. Flynn have these plans electronically? Would he be able to screen share it on the screen for?
No,
yeah.
not the color rendering,
okay.
Unfortunately.
Just any plan?
Sure. Tim, do you happen to have the...
I think there's a couple people, abutters online, that it would be beneficial if he could do that for us. And maybe we can prepare for next time.
Absolutely. Wayne, Madam Chair, thank you to the folks who are online right now. Apologies for not being able to see. Wayne, what plan are you on right now? Because I too am unable to see.
Okay. Sorry about that. That would be, I'm actually on the color rendering. If you want, Tim, go to the key sheet for the grading and drainage plan. That might help. So this is going to take a minute, Madam Chair, with Tim.
I think it's important because there are a few people on that I think it would be helpful.
What I will do is...
We could queue it up here too.
Okay, prior to the next meeting, I will be sure to have this to you folks electronically. So
thank you.
On the screen. Plus for me to carry as well.
Right.
Shall I hold on any more presentation?
No, you can continue. You can continue, thank you. You left off with the on-site septic and wells.
Yes, thank you. So each lot is going to be provided an on-site septic and well, septic system and well. We did do some soil testing out here. What we found is in doing our soil testing is that the results of the soil testing are consistent with the NRCS maps, with the hydrologic soil groups primarily C. And so, like I said, we found that was fairly, no kidding.
He's good.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Okay, sorry about that.
He did that all in 2 minutes.
Through the chair, how did you get that?
You gave it to him.
I'll teach you later.
Wow, impressed.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as the folks can see up here, I wish I had my laser pointer. Each lot, like I said, will have its own septic and well. We did some soil testing out there, as I indicated. In terms of stormwater, we needed to mitigate any increases in the peak rate of runoff. As the board knows, anytime you change cover types on site, anytime you reroute stormwater through pipes, it increases the velocity to get it down there fast, which results in the increase of peak rate of stormwater runoff. We're required under the state regulations and local regulations to mitigate and not exceed the peak rate of runoff as it leaves the site. And so in our report, we've demonstrated that we were doing that. That report will be the subject of the review of the town's peer review consultant. And as part of the design, we collected everything in catch basins routed through drain manholes and a pipe network down to various detention basins throughout the site. We are infiltrating as we're required by the state stormwater regulations to the maximum extent practicable on these basins. And so essentially, as I said earlier, what we're doing with the stormwater runoff, as I showed the previous patterns, we're mimicking those patterns post-construction. So anything that was headed to Duval Road is going to continue to head to Duval Road at the same rate or less. Anything that was headed down to this channel down below is going to continue to head to that channel at the same rate or less. As I said earlier, anything from this point over is not being developed, so there was no need to analyze that area from there. We're accomplishing that by proposing up above, as I said, this stormwater that comes off the subdivision up above is unmitigated. And so the way we designed it is stormwater that came off the top of the hill is being picked up by swales that run along the backs of these properties, one in this direction, one in the other direction, from here to here to a common point, and then routed through and down to where it currently goes. Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Benoit. Oh, where's the cat when I need him?
Here you go.
Is it on the screen?
It may not. It was bottom left from the second I got there.
Because that was the same thing that was going
It was worth a try.
It was.
Okay.
I may actually have a pointer. Does it not matter? Someone have a ladder.
It's okay.
Sure, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So again, we have, we picked everything up, sent it to where it currently goes, and then anything as a result of the development, we're mitigating through the stormwater basins that are located throughout the site. For instance, I have one here, 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 down below in the back, in the lower reaches. And what we did is, back in the day when projects were developed, they were developed where you had these monster stormwater basins all the way at the bottom of the site. Well, under the principles of LID, low impact development, you break it up. And what you do is you site stormwater basins throughout the site in their individual watershed areas, kind of a divide and conquer type of approach before it gets down to the area below. We are required under the state stormwater regulations to infiltrate the changes in the, going from non-impervious to impervious areas. We're required to mitigate the stormwater runoff that does leave the site and infiltrate that with the stormwater basins. And several of these homes will also be equipped with rooftop infiltration systems. In terms of, that's pretty much it, Madam Chair, in terms of the stormwater. We are going to be seeking relief from the planning board, and what I mean by that is we are applying for some waivers, one of which is for a sidewalk waiver from rather than two sides of the road, just one. Originally, when we met, I was considering, Madam Chair, relief to your road section width, 60-foot layout. However, once we got into the design, and we started to site the trees along the side of the road, behind the sidewalk, the 60-foot width works like a charm. So I'm not going to be seeking relief from that, because what I have found is that one of the options was to site the trees within the 5-foot planter strip. What tends to happen there is that the drip edge of the tree, which is typically the root system, it's on the pavement for the road and the sidewalk, unless you go with a deep tap type tree. So what we're thinking is we position the trees along the edge of the layout behind the sidewalk, so it has a better chance of survival. And in doing that, it's between the sidewalk and the edge of the layout. We are seeking relief to the requirement of 100 tree every 100 feet. The reason we're doing that, Madam Chair, is that as we discussed at the preliminary stage, there are going to be areas where the tree line is going to come up close to the road or to the back of the sidewalk. And if that is the case, and we've identified those areas on the plan based on our grading, it really doesn't make sense to plant a tree there because it's going to be fighting with the existing trees for survival. We also have requested relief to the road grade at the intersections, more particularly at where Road D comes into Road A. That's the road that comes down from Forest Street down to where it intersects the main spine road, Road A, where if we were to put in a fully complying road, we would have a 13-foot fill. Currently, we're at a 4-foot cut at that location, so the delta would be roughly about 17 feet.
What is your grade at that?
So we're currently coming into that location, I believe, at 4%. Okay. Versus the 2%. Okay. And so, as you folks know, when you look at the 4 and the 2, there really isn't that much of a grade change differential. I believe that was it for the waivers. I'm sure there were.
Yep, and the review of alternative development scenarios.
Correct. So as discussed, Madam Chair, when you pressed the question that come up, in fact, Mr. Benoit had asked that question several weeks ago, and Mr. Flynn responded. And would you like to answer that one? I believe that he's looked at that flexible development option. Tim, would you like to weigh in on that?
Yes, so apologies, I had technical difficulty. So could you please repeat the question?
So the chair would like to know about the alternatives where we're seeking a waiver. So that would be the first waiver we're seeking under 4.1.4R, which is a review of alternative development scenarios, flexible development, lit residential compound.
We brought that to the investor, and it was not something he was looking, or they were rather, to move forward with, specifically due to timing and long-term profitability and what they believed to be the most successful development here.
Okay, thank you very much. Board, any questions at this time? Questions, comments?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Zwicker, yeah?
Road width.
Yes. Madam Chair, the road width, what we're looking to do is seek some relief to that, so that on I believe we're requesting a waiver. Originally, we're looking to request a waiver from the 24-foot down to 22 for Road D. We're looking to request a waiver to 22 feet on Road B and on Road C. Initially, like I said, we're looking at Road D. However, when speaking with the public safety officials, primarily the fire chief, he preferred on Road D going out to Forest that it would be 24 feet. I did indicate to him that in turning onto Forest that it would be turning onto a pavement width of about 16 to 18 feet. So he has committed, in fact, earlier this week, we had met with staff, including your public safety officials, Mr. Benoit, and the town manager and others, DPW director and building inspector, to discuss the project. And one of the things that the chief had committed to was getting us the specifications of his ladder truck. We run software on our systems that looks at vertical clearance, because as we know, I mean, the front end of these things are back and overhang somewhere between 14 feet. So we have software that we enter that data and we can simulate the turn.
Yeah, there is no waiver requested at this time for road width, though. Is that?
We don't have a waiver.
Oh, is that, so why did you say waiver?
I'm not sure, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I don't know if that, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so do your plans reflect the reduced?
They do.
Okay.
They do.
Okay.
I'm going to rebut on that.
Yep.
Chair. Just so, I understand you want to keep some of the asphalt down. But as you know, Ernie, plowing, like the street I'm on, it's 21 feet wide. After the first snowstorm, it's 16 feet. The next snowstorm, it goes down to 15 feet. Make the roads a little bit wider. We're in the winter around here long enough where you need the width for the snow. So that, as we all know, with all the delivery trucks nowadays and everything, you need to stop on the road, period. You've got to stop to let the truck go by. So I know you're saying 22 and 24 sounds great in the middle of July. Doesn't work in January and February.
Through the chair. Yes. 24 is, as you know, typical of this type of development for subdivisions. Typically, anything wider than that is not standard. Considering, again, we're looking at adjoining streets with widths 16 to 18 feet and going to something, you know, the 24-foot width is typical of what you see in many communities for pavement widths. I do appreciate the comment of snow storage, and you know, it's a valid comment. We are providing parking for these lots up on the properties. We've got turnouts so that each home can park 4 vehicles to the garage and to the turnout.
We don't have a requirement.
No, I know, but I'm just stating that, through the chair, and I appreciate what you're saying, but the roads you're talking about are 150 years old. We're a planning board, we're looking towards the future. There's going to be more delivery trucks, your oil trucks, everything's going to be going into these neighborhoods with cars also on the same roads. So I'll take that into account with the width of the roads. I know they want to keep them as narrow as possible. I understand some of it's cost because it's more asphalt, but the winters around here, as we all know, the roads get small real fast.
Well, but the right-of-way, you're planning to have this be a public way. The right-of-way, you're still at 60 feet.
That's right.
Right in front of me, but I'm talking about the road.
Yeah, the paved width, but there will be room on either side of the paved width for any residual snow. Not when you're plowing?
Madam Chair, to this point, I understand what he's saying. I live in a development that was built in the 1940s. Deplorable conditions. I think Mr. Benoit is familiar with the area.
Did you say deplorable conditions?
Because he was a planner at one point in the town of Auburn. And along my road, the road was in deplorable conditions. Last summer, they redid the roads with the 2 minutes confirmed, as we're proposing here. It's 22 feet wide, the plows come through, and it is clean right up to the edge of the berm. And maybe there needs to be some discussion with the contractors that are plowing the roads, that they take it up to the berms. Madam Chair.
Oh, is that Mr. Flynn?
Oh, wow, I wish I watched a little bit at the beginning.
Who is that?
It is not good.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Through the chair?
Yes, yes, Mr. Marks.
I'm not in favor of, it took us a long time to get to the decision we have about how wide our roads are supposed to be. If this was a 10-lot at dead-end cul-de-sac, maybe I'd be willing to lower the width of the roads, but you're putting 31 houses in and four more roads. Our rules and regulations call a width of the road be a standard that is suitable for that subdivision, and
If we could read the
favor of
section,
lessening it any.
we can't overstep though, so if we could read the section of, that speaks to the roadway width, Mr. Benoit will get that for us.
Just show us on coming off of Wall Road, that main road coming in, that's going to be 24 foot wide?
That's correct.
And then all the secondary roads off of that, you're close to 22?
Ideally, with the exception of Road D, which then goes back up the forest at the request of, so the public safety officials and the DPW will find that the road widths that were proposed.
Just to the chair, so you took the calculation of the road width based upon you're doing lid, right? Stormwater management means two things, a wider road, you have more runoff, more water to the tree, and then you also have a higher rate of speed on that road, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And that, I appreciate those points through the chair. Your fellow board member does raise some good points. In fact, as we designed the subdivision, and the traffic consultant at the meeting can speak to roadway geometry and to those points there, that the wider the road, the inclination is to punch it and go. We all have that tendency. The narrower the road, the more curvilinear the road, you proceed with caution. When we designed Road D, coming down from the forest down to Road A, there was a reason for the curvilinear. It was twofold. One, to minimize the impacts on the grade, but two, because of the grade coming down there, what we wanted to do was make it more serpentine as a traffic calming measure.
Yeah, and I think once the traffic is presented, we can take a look at the roadway width and lengths and the consequences. Mr. Benoit, did you want to tell us a little bit? What is in our regulations?
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
without reading it straight off, the width covers its right-of-way and the minimum for the right-of-way. It does not cover the actual width of the road itself.
Okay, and we have the 60 foot.
Yep, section
Is the requirement.
5.1.2.
Okay. Okay. So we may want to put that on our list of things to do.
Discretion of the board.
Sure. So I got a question regarding the 1,000 foot, not needed a 1,000 foot waiver. You have measured the point of where the intersection is coming off of your proposed road D, and then measuring the cul-de-sac from that point. But you also have you're coming in off of the Hall Road, and you go right there. So just curious, because the 1,000 foot, how you're determining to measure that from there, of the intersection versus the overall project, and then the other fourth road being a service road, it would be more beneficial for you.
So through the chair, that's a good question. So yes, it's less than 1,000 feet from the intersection of Road D to the very end. That road that originally was looking to be a service road is now going to become, should the town look to accept the roads in the subdivision, will become a public road. Lots being created on the frontage of that road, so it's no longer a service road. Originally, we were looking at it as an emergency vehicle access. Based on the feedback we got from this board and the public safety officials, we chose to set that aside and create a real road that that goes out to Forest Street. When I say real road, real land.
What is our foot?
For dead end.
There's only this area.
Correct. Through the chair. So I've experienced this before with other subdivisions and other communities. Whereas the road connects to two existing roads, those sections don't constitute dead ends, as you well know. It is measured from where the dead end begins at the end at the intersection. If it's less than 1,000 feet from that point, it meets our requirements.
Anyone else? No. Okay. Anyone from the audience have any questions or concerns? So I'll start over here. Miss, name and address, please.
Betsy Choate, Belvoir Ave, 7 Belvoir Ave. I have a couple of comments or questions. One, so we're in that area where it's that Road D, okay, that comes off, that was originally just going to be for emergency vehicles only, and now you've turned it into a real road, what you call the real road. And I'm a little bit curious as to how that came about, because, or is the reason so you have now road frontage so you could add some more houses? That was one question I have. But the other question I have is, among all the areas we are, Fairfax Way, Belvoir, Forest, Lucy Street, those are all the combined areas. We probably don't have 31 houses in that whole development. Now you are building 31 houses, and you are going to be putting private wells in. What does that do to the wells for everybody else that's there? Has there been tests done on the recovery, or I don't know what the right term is there enough water to do that? Because I remember when we bought ours, the realtor even said, oh, I hope, you know, your well doesn't go dry someday because they're adding more houses. So now you're adding twice as many houses as what's there right now. And to the septic, and, you know, septic, where does it all go? Does it go into these brooks or whatever? And third, I guess if you're paving this road A, it's now a cement. Does that run off to the houses that are on the Forest Street? And what does it do to their yards? Those, I guess, a few of my concerns or questions. I just find it unique that if all you needed was just an emergency exit road, how it turned into now this real road with houses on it.
Through the chair, I do appreciate Ms. Cho's questions. If I recall, there was like 3 questions. I'll try to address them. If I do miss one, I would like somebody to remind me of the question.
Okay.
But the first question was the through road, okay? And why has this become a real road? Originally, we were looking at the emergency vehicle access. It was intended to be a paved drive with a gate at one end and a gate at the other, purely for the use of emergency vehicles to go from the subdivision up to the town of Douglas. Both public safety departments in both communities were not in favor of it. When I presented it to this board and to the Sutton Planning Board, I got the same feedback once I presented it, that public safety officials were not in favor of it. Public safety goes a long way, as this board knows. They have a lot of influence on what designs, and they can influence the board's decision on certain aspects. So we did go from that to the full road. To the question, Madam Chair, as to was the intent to develop more lots? The intent was not to develop more lots. In fact, the existing house at 5 Forest, had we gone with the emergency vehicle access, it would have required an easement for that lot, and that lot would be untouched. That house would be in that current location. So we would not develop. In fact, the only lot that we got, we only got, if anything, one lot. And we had primarily, you know, we had enough frontage. This is 200 foot of frontage in here. We've got almost that in here. We would have been able to still have the same lot density. In fact, I think we did. With the, so it wasn't that. With respect to, there was a question through the chair on the wells. Thank you. not easy getting old. So with respect to the wells, there was a question raised by some Sutton residents as to the impacts of the development on the down gradient wells. It was because of that, it incorporated in the planning board's decision in Sutton that not only the traffic analysis be performed, but a hydrogeologic analysis be performed, which was submitted as part of this finding. So that was performed by corporate environmental advisors. I'm sure some of the board members have heard of them. They've been around, I think, since the 60s or 70s. Very capable firm. And they came up with their conclusions, which long and short were it will not have an adverse impact on the down gradient wells. The gentleman that will be able to speak to that, I think will be in at a future hearing, Madam Chair.
Yeah, if we could request that, that would be wonderful. I think we just have one copy, but maybe we can circulate the electronic copy.
Yes.
I think that.
Madam Chair, if I could, the last question, do you recall that?
So what?
Runoff on the road.
Thank you. So with respect to the runoff, as I indicated earlier, we're required, so with respect to the impacts on the upgradient properties, as I said before, everything from that subdivision. So if I'm standing on Forest Street with my back toward the subdivision, as I look up and I look up Fairfax, I look up Belvoir, and I look up toward Lucy, midway, just beyond Lucy, where Lucy comes into the Belvoir, probably 100 feet, 50, 100 feet back toward this site is where it breaks in grade and comes down to this site. I was out there during a rainstorm. I met an abutter out there and observed how the water comes down in this direction. So basically, everything that is happening on the site is going to have absolutely no impact on those folks up at Forest. Anything down gradient of this, we are required, as you know, Madam Chair, to mitigate any increases in the peak rate of runoff, which we have, and it's included in the stormwater report.
I think, any follow-up questions?
I got a question.
Okay. Name and address, please.
Yep, map B, 8 Belvoir. My concern is the roads themselves that we live on that exist. They've been there 40-something years. They're barely paved. They're small. And these are access roads to a 31-lot, house subdivision. So I'd just like to raise that.
Your concerns.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so if I could just respond to that again. Our traffic consultant is going to be able to address that. They did in the report, as the board knows, and looking through that wonderful document, they did have trip distributions as they are required, and it will show at the various locations how many vehicle trips per day over the course of the day and at the peak hours during the day, morning and evening, are distributed. How many are headed toward Forest, how many are going down to Duval. Based on my recollection, the majority of it was going to Duval.
Just like as a follow-up, is there anything in the plan for any improvements to our roads?
There is nothing.
There is nothing.
Chair.
So we're having this subdivision with a brand-new roadway and access, and we have nothing on our roads that are barely paved. They're basically added traffic. Yeah. So added traffic. I just don't see that working.
Yeah, I think you could raise that concern with the traffic engineer once.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if there was anything existing in this
Nothing
plan
at this
that I'm
moment is
missing.
planned.
I mean,
Nothing is planned at this moment. Sorry, sir. Yep, name and address, please.
Henry LeDuc, 100 Mumford Street. Could we refer to your plan C1110? Where your proposed lot 22 abuts the rear of my property and the swamp. I haven't observed any wetland flagging done down there. It looks like the proposed road is right in the buffer zone of the swamp. And you put a road right at the edge of your property, that's an uphill slope of about 5 to 10%. The water's going to run off into the swamp.
Thank you, Tim. Madam Chair, Mr. Leduc is referring to this area here. And he's located up in here. And what he's saying is the runoff is going to run off into the swamp. As I said earlier, Madam Chair, this channel here heads down to the 36-inch culvert. So anything that runs off here is going to run off into that culvert. I did look at trying to create a gravel wetland in that area, which is, that's a great little system. Unfortunately, as I started to look at that, I couldn't fit it in there. It requires a little bit of space, so I couldn't do that. So what we did is we overcompensated for the runoff that hits the channel at this particular location with a basin just.
That's what I was just gonna ask.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
You can't overcompensate for it in other places because it's downhill straight from that lot into the swamp.
There is that dug channel. Do you know where he's talking about?
No.
The
I'm
dug
just
channel in the
referring to
woods?
one lot.
So yours
Because
is.
he's putting a road right on the edge, that means the water's going to run off.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I think I know what you're referring to. You're referring to not so much the road, you're referring to, Madam Chair, I think you're referring to
That drive?
I'm not referring to that, I'm referring to one of your sub-plans.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right here.
so
You
Madam
don't
Chair,
want this up?
yep, thank you. So Madam Chair,
I
as
highlighted the specific areas if you want to look at it close.
I'm sorry, just through the chair, please.
Okay, but,
Thank you. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
and I haven't observed any wetland flagging done either.
Not on his side,
correct.
just on the other side.
No, on the whole swamp in that back area, there's no wetland flagging done.
So if I could, Madam Chair? So this project, as I said in the beginning of the presentation, as you know, Madam Chair, was the subject of a filing of an abbreviated notice of abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, which is basically a filing that was made by a professional wetland scientist to your commission to review and confirm his wetland boundaries. If the chair remembers, everything was delineated. Mr. Ziska walked the wetlands. I think it was
Art Allen.
Art Allen from Ecotech also peer reviewed it and concurred with the findings of the field. Well, it was the decision at that time, if you recall, Madam Chair, that there was no need, and it was agreed to between the commission and the consultants, to look at the wetlands on the other side of that channel, as there was no work being proposed over there. So it would have, quite honestly, looking at the amount of wetlands on the site, it would have been essentially a waste of time for something that was never going to get developed anyway.
Right, so the closest point was flagged on the other side of the channel, closest in between the new subdivision and the channel. That was flagged. So you should be able to still see some flags. That was a little bit ago, but we do have an approval from conservation, and we could get you a copy of that plan.
I'd appreciate that because I didn't know about a conservation mission, but it's still a slope on the hill, and there's still a road on the edge of their property, so there's still going to be runoff.
They are mitigating the runoff from the applicant, is stating that the runoff is required to stay on the property.
That's correct.
And to be mitigated.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
just want to reiterate to the folks that are here and the folks that are on the Zoom. It's the first of many hearings, we presume. This is going to be not only done studies with his team, excuse me, the applicant's team, but we are also hiring at the applicant's expense a peer review consultant that will be reviewing compliance with our regulations. So we're reviewing compliance with the stormwater management, with the hydrogeology, and the traffic. So all those reports are pending. Once we get that back, we'll have from our specialist perspective, and then at some point, when the applicant has communicated, there will be some revisions, most likely. So those things are pending, they're in the works. So as far as stormwater and hydrogeology goes, we may not have the answers for you this evening, but we anticipate having those in a future meeting.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else in the audience, questions, comments? I'll be back.
I only did one.
No, go ahead, that's fine.
You can go.
Okay, hi.
Name and address.
Madam Chair, 50 Conservation Drive. 33-year resident of Douglas, prior to that Sutton. And the reason I say that is we had a similar experience in Sutton with builders, and I don't think any of the folks on the planning board perhaps were here during the preservation park and all that went through to actually get our road, which was horrendous, finally approved. Given that, I've never met either of the gentlemen that appear to be principals, I'm not sure. And I certainly wouldn't want to hurt anyone or say anything that would, make them think or anyone think that, I'm all for, building whatever anyone wants to build with, the proper channels that, you seem to be going through. That being said, I know Ernie is probably the only one here that knows what we've gone through on Conservation Drive over 22 years that we built our house. We are at the top of the road, at the cul-de-sac, which you probably noticed, least affected person or people on the road. We were promised 110 acres of conservation land with trails, sidewalks, the whole shebang. The runoff on our street is absolutely horrendous. Every year, several times a year, we are replacing loam and gravel, and there was supposed to be drainage, there wasn't. So anyways, bad situation, got even worse. Finally, the town, very nicely worked with us, and we got the road a public road. My concern, or really not a concern, there's a lot of concerns. My disappointment here is in the prior planning board, conservation, whomever, never followed through, and that land that was promised to us, and it's actually the primary reason that we built where we did. And, the nature trails that we're going to go through and all that was promised of now, of course, is a moot point. So basically, just for the record, and I don't know in the last 22 years since we built if bonding has changed the amounts of monies. To pave our road, there was a $30,000 bond by the two builders who went bankrupt and left our home and many others having to put $10,000 of soil to cover our septic system so that we could get a, occupancy permit. So again, I don't know the two gentlemen or the corporations, but I would hope that that would seriously be looked at in depth, because you never know what can happen. And I would hate to see someone else have to go through what we've gone through. So basically, it's a statement for the record, and again, I don't know, what bond amounts have to be placed these days, but it was completely insufficient.
Yeah, there is a peer review process for the bond amount. And I think that, yes, from 22 years ago, we have made advancements, and we are very sensitive to bonding and progress of projects with people living in them. So,
if I could as well, Madam Chair, so thank you very much. When we got involved in this project, it was brought to our attention early. We were informed of the debacle. In fact, I recall at one of the meetings, be it during the preliminary stage or with conservation, one of the abutters on Conservation Drive, I believe it was number 29, said, used the term, somebody dropped the ball. When Tim Flynn and I heard the story, and we got in our vehicles, I got a call from Tim, and he said, what the heck happened there? So we looked into it, and what we found out, to the point that you had just made, Madam Chair, there have been advancements in town. A lot has changed in this town that you residents, as you know, in terms of town staff, and in terms of oversight. Our understanding, and I could be wrong, but our understanding was that there was no mechanism for oversight back then, unlike what we have today.
Yeah, I think it's in the past and it happened, so, but it is noted for the record, and we have a lot of safeties in place so that doesn't happen again.
And if I could, Madam Chair, just reiterate that there is 55 acres being set aside. I know it's not the 110, but there are 55 acres being set aside with a good percentage of that being on them as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
Just a quick, and just food for thought, or whether it's you with your traffic studies or whatever, and I don't know the layout of where these houses all are and what's closer to Mumford Road or what's closer to Conservation Drive, but just food for thought is these probably are going to be families that have children that might be taking buses to school. Now, I don't know where people get the buses. So from Conservation Drive, I know in our neighborhood, you only get it at the end of Belvoir Ave. It's a long walk to that location. No one lets their children walk to that location. They all drive them to the school bus and pick them back up. So I don't know the location of where these houses are lumped, whether some would be going Conservation Drive, some would be might be going out to Belvoir Ave, but I just think we should be mindful of the school bus situation, because school buses are not, they're not going to care about, the Douglas schools are not going to care about the 3 houses that are in Sutton. So the Duval Road side of it, no one's going to be going out that way to get their school bus. The other 3 entrances, they will be, and there will never be buses going down in that, I can't imagine.
No.
So just things to think about.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I think that is a good point as well. We've had discussions on that as well. So should the town decide to accept this as a public way, as you know, school buses will be coming into the subdivision. We have had discussions with both DPWs as to who is going to maintain the Douglas roads should the town decide to accept the roads, and the DPW agreed that it would be the Douglas DPW. Given that only 500 feet or so of the road is located in Sutton, the Douglas DPW agreed to maintain that section because if they need to get into the site, they're not going to wait till the town of Sutton comes through, and so they're just going to drop the blade and come through and apply. The same with the line out chair with the school buses.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience? Oh, I'm sorry, came in.
Russ Poirier, 16 Fairfax. So I know we haven't gotten to the technical traffic study yet, but what's the proposed plan for everything coming in as in building materials? Because these roads around here coming into this project are severely deteriorated. And all of these trucks coming in here are going to be 80,000 plus pounds. We're not talking small delivery trucks. We're not talking 53-footers hauling paper towels. We're talking about cement trucks. We're talking about cranes. We're talking about 18-wheelers with dirt. You got form companies. You got, this is a lot of material that's going to be trucking in and out over these roads. And they're not the guys that are going to say, oh, 146 is the only way we come in or what have you. They're going to come in whichever's closest to their job. I run a crane for a living, and it's 130,000 pounds going down the road. I'm not taking the longest way in there. I'm going the shortest way in. So if that means I'm going over Fairfax and I'm ruining the road, that stinks. But that also doesn't fall on the person doing the crane operation or the form crew. So that needs to be taken into serious consideration. That, I mean, the plow goes by in front of my house and rips up the road every storm. So it's nothing they can do about it. It's what they have to do. But the road is deteriorated beyond reasonable use at the point. So.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, if I could.
Yes.
That's a great point, and that's one of those things that you typically you hear about the hauling of materials to and from site. As part of the plan set, we do have a phasing plan. As you folks have seen, we have an erosion sediment control plan. The site is broken up into 5 phases. The first phase, phase 1, Tim, I don't know if you have the plan set itself, but we have a phasing plan that shows the first phase. If you could, Tim, put up your plan. Thank you. So there are 5 phases. Primarily, the first phase is from Duval Road and the loop. The second phase would be taking it from the loop, the second intersection of the loop where it comes into Road A, up to and up through Forest. And then the third phase would be the end of the cul-de-sac here. Phase 4 would be this cul-de-sac, and phase 5 would be the development of the 3 lots off the end of the cul-de-sacs. So in each of these phases, as we discussed at the preliminary stage, we recognize the situation with Duval Road. At the time when we first started this project, Duval Road wasn't repaved. There was a lot of concern from the residents in Sutton about the condition to Duval Road. They have since repaved it. Our understanding was that they were going to repave it after the development. It was repaved. So as we discussed with town staff, with this board during the preliminary subdivision process, each of these phases is going to have an operational processing operation. They're going to process material on site. There's plenty of material. They will be processing it in each phase. So that would be our approach. There is going to be the delivery of materials. You're not going to get everything off the site, but we're going to minimize as much as we can by processing each phase.
Okay, so what can you speak to the additional construction traffic, the construction vehicles, if they are going into the little neighborhoods?
So it would make sense. So to the gentleman's point, Madam Chair, he had indicated from point A to B, the quickest route. Well, the quickest route is not to go through the Forest Drive subdivision. Any driver that does that has had just a little too much for lunch. So they're going to come down Duval. And I know the folks in Sutton don't want to hear it, but they're going to be coming down Duval. It's a more direct route to the site.
Madam Chair,
Does that answer your question?
To an extent, I'll have to come up with a few more.
We can maybe think of.
The problem is, what it comes down to is I can understand the gentleman's point.
Condition.
You're in the beginning stages, they're not going to be coming through our little neighborhoods. That's all well and good. But what's going to eventually happen is with only 24-foot roadways, which is standard, no arguments, wider than the roads we live on now, much wider. But the problem that you're going to have is once you start having forms and cranes and all these, once the actual building is done, I understand they're going to go through, they're going to do all the site prep, they're going to do the wells and the planning and the foundations. But once you actually start constructing and laying down binder and grading roads and everything else, they're not all going to be able to go back down to Duval. It's just not going to happen. There's going to be too many bottlenecks. There's going to be too many things going on. I understand how construction goes. They're going to be pushing out of these back roads. I mean, for a prime example, Mcintyre was here earlier. They're probably going to be bringing a lot of material. They're right around the corner. There's no reason for them to always come up. You know what I'm saying? It's not so much that the driver might have had too much for lunch or what have you. It's
where they're at,
where they're coming from. The driver's going to go whatever way they're going. That's what I see as being a problem. I mean, our roads are already deteriorated. They're just crumbling.
The potential for damage for further damage.
My other question that I just remembered is, where are we pulling all the electricity from once this is all set up? I understand that we're not going to have any fire prevention in there because we don't have any water on the streets as it is. But where is all the electricity getting pulled through? We're going to be having outages for National Grid bringing in and tying in, or?
So, Madam Chair, we are going to be coming in off of, I believe we have a proposed coming in off of the Wall Road. With respect to, and the transformers and the like are going to be located by a local utility company. In terms of the fire suppression, I failed to mention that. In speaking with the public safety officials, there was discussion about the cisterns versus the fire bags. And what was decided is that Mr. Flynn has committed to sprinkling each of the houses. So they'll have their own sprinkler system rather than depending on
Serviced by a separate well?
No. So basically the way it's we spoke to a company that said that they draw from the same well and they come into the house, it tees off, goes to the domestic, and then it comes to the fire suppression line to a tank in the basement and a booster that serves the house.
Okay.
What's the backup with that? I mean, I'm not going to be living in the house, it's really not my problem, but if we lose power, is they still, if it's a well, it's got to have a well pump. Well pump runs off electricity. Are these going to be pressurized tanks that then...
Generators.
Yeah. Every house is going to have a flip-on generator that, Lord willing, your house is on fire, you hope
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. So it's kind of outside the scope. Let me just get anyone else, 1 second. Yeah, name and address, please.
Carol Lincoln. I live on Forest Street, number 13. If you don't mind, I'll point it out.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
I'm at the bottom of this hill, and everything on that hill goes into my front lawn, including cars.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, there's no stop sign. They can go straight.
I know. I've had 3 cars in my front lawn since I've lived here. I've been here for 30 years. And I have dug up my front lawn so many times, it's crazy, that I finally ended up putting 8 tons of riprap, gutters, and then a fence to handle runoff from that road. And what this gentleman said before, one of my main concerns is all of the crud that is going to be coming down that road into my front lawn again from vehicles. Not just, I'm really concerned with the construction vehicles, but also additional cars. And the snow plows come down the hill and plow right into my driveway. So I end up with piles about this high in my driveway. So when this new place comes in, there will definitely be more traffic, and I do expect my lawn to get wiped out a couple more times. I am concerned about the well in my yard, as Betsy said. I'm concerned about my septic system in the back of my yard, which will abut the new ones right there. I'm concerned about the roads that are literally non-existent. They come around and they throw a little toilet paper and spit on them, and it survives another couple of days. There's literally dirt coming up from underneath the roads. The trucks coming through, the runoff from the road, because the road's already torn apart. I also likewise was sold on the lovely land that was behind my house that I do tend to hike through, which I do hike a lot, and I'm going to be very sad to lose that. I am not looking forward to looking into somebody else's back window. And I think that's about it. My sewer, the drainage, the traffic. Did I miss anything? Oh, and the loss of my property value. Trucks coming, going, and that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to respond to anything?
Madam Chair, I could.
The traffic we can hold till next. I think the drainage, speaking to, again, all the drainage is going going to be maintained on site.
Correct, Madam Chair. And the drainage issues up in the subdivision, they're going to continue. Anything we're proposing here is down gradient of that and will not exacerbate it. When making reference to additional vehicles coming up and additional sands and salts, again, we're talking, think of the sand and salt on your vehicle, and we're not talking buckets of sand and salts on a vehicle. So that is going to continue. The subdivision will have no impact on our well based on the study from the hydrogeo. He'll speak to that, so that question, Madam Chair, can be raised to him. In terms of the septic, any work done on this site will not adversely impact the septic. The septic, all the septic is for is leaching the effluent from the system. That's all it's for. So anything that we do down gradient of that, several hundred feet away will not have any impact on the septic. I'm not exactly sure how to respond to that. And I don't know what type of impact it would have on the septic. It does. And in fact, this, and that's a good point, Madam Chair. I think, with this development, in terms of groundwater recharge, which we're required to do, I've said this before at the preliminary phase that it sounds rather disgusting, but we're getting groundwater recharge through the stormwater management system. We're getting groundwater recharge, whatever's drawn out of the wells. If you have your on-site private sewage disposal systems, you're getting recharged through the effluent that goes through the systems. I told a story at one point, I don't know if it was to this board, where Mass DEP several years ago decided, with all these ponds getting eutrophication and all this algae growing, why don't we decide to route all these houses through a public sewer system down to the Millbury treatment plant on Route 20? Well, what happened is all the base flow elevations in the streams started to lower, and these streams started drying up. So that was because of interbasin transfer and not recharging the groundwater. This site, like these folks' sites in the surrounding areas, we're going to get groundwater recharge not only with stormwater runoff, but with this. Unfortunately, in their subdivision, whatever was there prior to them moving in, there's no groundwater recharge. All of that is running off onto the downgrade side of the subject.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Susan Foley on Zoom. I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. My name is Susan Foley. I live in Preservation Park, 29 Conservation Drive. I purchased my home in Preservation Park based on the information provided to me by my realtor and the builder, who stated that the 100 acres abutting my property was to be, or was conservation land. We found out years later that the owner of the 100 acres, Eveningside Realty, was allegedly denied the ability to build on a lousy 2 acres. And just like that, residents of Douglas lost 100 acres of conservation land. So my question to you, Madam Chair, for Mr. Villette is the 55 acres that he speaks of, how will that benefit residents of Conservation Drive? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Through the chair, the intent here is to have that set aside to the town as public open space. Should the town decide to accept the roads as public roads, the intent would be for them to accept the open space as well for public use.
So it's hinging on us accepting the way as a public way? Okay.
Should the town want the open space,
Yes.
the town will, with the developers will grant the open space.
So I think there's also an ability to further develop, and you're deciding not to.
That's correct.
Oh, I know there's a lot of wetland, but
Can you, Madam Chair, have him point to where the 55 acres would be? Again, it's Susan Foley, 29 Conservation Drive.
Madam Chair, I believe this shows up, yes, this shows up on the screen. So the 55 acres would go from the back of the proposed lots through here down to to Mumford and continue back toward the south to the abutting properties and out to Conservation Drive through the abutters next to Mrs. Foley's property. There's the 20-foot strip that goes out to Conservation Drive next to her house.
I have a question about that, Madam Chair. Yep. Bully again, 29 Conservation Drive. On the Worcester Registry of Deeds, I didn't see that that was purchased by Sutton Douglas Development. So was that, can you ask Mr. Bullock when that purchase occurred?
What purchase specifically is that?
The 20-foot right-of-way next to my home.
Tim, through the chair, please.
And name and address, please, so that the minute taker knows who's...
Name and address, Tim Flynn.
Hi, Tim Flynn, owner of Flynn Build and Develop, developer on the project. So we purchased the property in, forgive me, it was, I believe, mid to end of last year. Apologies, I can pull it up, not a problem, but it was approximately 120 acres. Specifically, I'm sorry, I missed your address. What address was that?
29 Conservation.
29 Conservation.
It's lot 19.
Excuse me, through the chair.
Yeah.
As part of the filing of the application, which should be available online to the residents, we did provide copies of the current deeds to the property. If I could, Madam Chair, also inform the board and the public, Mr. Flynn, as he said, is totally transparent on this. He would like to have the abutters, if they have any questions. Tim, through the chair, have you uploaded the website yet?
Correct. Website is live. It's through the chair. It is SuttonDouglasResidential.com. It is up and available. With correspondence, we've also set up a dedicated email address that comes into the firm. Please bear with us as we get a lot of correspondence for 48-hour turnaround and response. There's also a dedicated phone line. Again, please bear with us. 48-hour return phone call based off of availability. The purpose here is to provide as much transparency, given some of what has actually come up today in terms of what has happened in the past, along with trying to be vigilant. The purpose here is to not be a one-and-done shop. We want to continue to do work in the Sutton Douglas area, both in the downtown areas and in the surrounding community. So again, that website is SuttonDouglasResidential.com. It is up, and please go to it, take a look. We actually have most of our submissions into the town, so they're readily available. We also have public notices. Anytime there's a public meeting, it will be posted on here. Again, please visit, contact us, and feel free to ask questions. We'll address them as best as possible.
Through the chair, is it possible for Mr. Flynn to email that link to Mr. Benoit so that it can be made available?
Yeah. Okay, I think...
Madam Chair?
Yes?
It's Susan Pulley again, 29 Conservation Drive. I have one more question.
Yes?
I should have asked previously is, did you also purchase the 2 acres that abuts that 20-foot right-of-way?
We're going to move forward with this, but if you go to the website and please email them, because we don't have that information readily available, but they're presenting as an entire project. So if you reach out to that website, and Mr. Benoit would be able to give that to you also if you didn't catch it. But we've got to move forward for the evening.
I just want to make one point, please. If they only have that 20-foot right-of-way to access the 55 acres that might be given to the town, that crosses the Dug Canal, so that would not be possible to get to the property if it's just the 20-foot right-of-way. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. This will be continued.
Yes, through the chair, where we're
The
at.
24th
I got it.
or April 4th?
I got it.
Yes. Okay.
To the chair. Have you talked to the post office? Are they gonna need Dropbox or is it gonna be individual mailboxes? You know?
Through the chair, that's a great question. That question came
I
up
already
last
told you
time.
to do that, yeah.
Yeah,
So you need to speak with the
that's
postmaster.
right. Thank you.
So would you like to continue to the 24th or the 4th?
Tim?
24th.
Okay.
24th, Madam Chair.
Okay,
One more question? Mike,
Yeah.
one more question.
And the back up what the gentleman in the audience was saying on these road widths, just so you know, the larger the vehicle is 8'6", not including mirrors. You have a foot on each side of the mirrors. 22-foot road. Things are going on, you're gonna be kissing mirrors in those roads.
so I think be prepared with your traffic engineer to answer those
These
questions
questions,
and to
please.
justify the width, the paved width.
What are they good with, Tracy? What are they good with? Continuing to when? April?
March 24th.
March 24th.
At,
Make a motion that we-
we'll do 7:45.
To March 24th?
Motion made by Mr. Mark, seconded by Mr. Sokrat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we'll see you on the 24th. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda.
If you want to write that down.
Okay, sorry, can I just, we have one more item. Dark Stream LLC. What?
Sorry, Madam Chair, just
What?
perhaps a recess to let the room clear up, or insist that people please stop talking.
I used the gavel.
Do it again?
That's all right. We've had big meetings before. This isn't.
Do you want to move the camera back or it doesn't matter? Okay, next item on the agenda, 7:30 PM, public hearing continued from February 24th, 2022, Dark Stream LLC application for site plan review, 116 Davis Street, possible votes. Welcome back. You're a good picker, I guess, huh?
Yeah, great, madam. Members of the board, just for the record, my name is Joe Caselli. I'm a professional engineer at the Commonwealth.
Sorry, can somebody close the door?
You can't legally close it.
Oh, can we keep it, can we yell at those people? Sorry.
With me is Sabian, who is one of the principals of Walnut Street LLC. Also, is our architect of record, and Geraldo Alba is our mechanical engineer. I'm sure you all may remember the last time we were before you. I can go through the presentation if you like. I'm not sure at this hour you're willing to sit through that, or is it necessary? We have been, by way of history, Madam Chair, we have been before the Technical Review Committee a number of times. Most recently, a month or two ago, there were minor comments. Both of them are addressed. One was to just keep the dumpster 10 feet away from the building, and also to put a fence around a portion of it. We do have our special permit for a non-exempt farm, less than 5 acres, from the zoning board back in November of last year. And as you know, we are here tonight for the site plan review for an alternate use in an industrial zone greater than 500 square feet. The last time we were before you, we had continued the matter just to get comments back from your peer review. We have complied and do have correspondence from Graves that I believe everything is in order. But I will defer to you. If you want a refresher, we'd be happy to go through. If not, all of us are here to answer questions of you or other members of the board.
Okay. Can you refresh me on what you're requesting for the special permit?
The special permit is, it was, this was the site plan review for we had a site plan review, and there was no special permit from this board.
Okay, all right.
I think that's our other application, which.
Yeah, all the titles have a
Yeah,
site plan and
drive
special
through.
permit, okay.
The only special permit we received was from zoning board of appeals.
Okay, all right, that's what I had recalled. Okay, so we have the Graves review. Mr. Benoit, any comments on this?
No, it appears through the review, Madam Chair, that the comments were addressed.
Okay. It's a short list, so.
Furthermore, Madam Chair, there was one comment between the building inspector and I was about the dumpster and the fence, and that is shown on the plan,
Okay.
so I'm happy to see it.
All right. Is anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns regarding this filing, this agenda item, 116 Davis Street? I'm seeing none. Board questions, comments? No? I'll entertain a motion. There were no requests for waivers. Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion made by Mr. Marks, second by Mr. Stevens. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Make a motion to grant the site plan review.
So moved.
With conditions.
Second.
Mr. Zwicker made the motion, second by Mr. Sokrat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
Thank you for your patience.
Thanks for your time.
It's all good.
I'll prepare a decision, and we'll go over it together prior to the board's meeting next meeting.
And Mr. Benoit, is there anything pressing, or can we table?
Unfortunately, there is some pressing items.
Yeah.
10 o'clock. Those items being the town meeting warrant article reconsideration.
Yep.
Upon further review and speaking with the folks involved with each of these, I'd recommend that the board reconsider their motion to forward the road acceptance for the Stonegate development. That is not going to be ready by spring town meeting. We can do this as a group and move forward. Okay.
Yep.
Also to reconsider the 55-plus bylaw, under section 7.4, and in combination with that, the revisions to the flexible development, 7.2.6. We received some feedback on those that there's some concerns about fair housing. I mentioned this last meeting. We have not received feedback from town council just yet, but ultimately, I'd like this to be an overhaul together, along with maybe some components of our subdivision control. So I think some more time needs to go into this, possibly consultants, whether or not considering the fair housing concerns. So the motion I'm hoping for the board tonight is to reconsider sending to the Board of Selectmen zoning bylaw amendments 55 plus under section 7.4, flex development 7.26, and the Stonegate road acceptance.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Zwicker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Marks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In addition to that, there is, I would request that the board consider a motion to the Board of Selectmen under Chapter 48, Section 5, to recommend removing Section 8.4 from our bylaws. That is the marijuana moratorium that has been expired since 2018. Simple removal of the section altogether.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Zwicker made the motion. Mr. Schultzberg made the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aside from minutes, that is all I have. I
Okay.
do have 3 sets of edited minutes for consideration this evening.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Through the chair, real quick. Like on these drawings, so we all know, there isn't 7 lines. So
There isn't what?
7 lines.
Okay.
You know that stuff ended.
Okay.
So from now on.
Okay.
If possible, Madam
Noted.
Chair,
Yeah.
if the notes are okay, recommend approval of the minutes as amended.
We haven't done.
I have done them.
You did
We
that?
haven't.
No, I edited them
Oh.
and gone through them.
Oh.
Well, just grammatical and just formality.
Yes.
Really.
Go.
Yeah, I went through them already.
Okay.
So I will make a motion to approve minutes for December 9th, 2021, January 27th, 2022, and January 13th, 2022.
As amended.
As amended.
Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Marks.
3 days.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll entertain the motion.
Those formalities. Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg, seconded by Mr. Stevens. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Cable.